Here we go. Welcome to the NFL Deeper Dive presented by none other than fantasydraft.com, the only rake-free daily fantasy site. And they're bringing that heat again, the fire with the $300,000 guaranteed rake-free contest, the Hooters main event. It's the largest and only rake-free contest of its kind that you'll find for week 9. And remember, only on Fantasy Drafter, 100% of entry fees paid to the contest winners. So here's what you should do to get involved. Sign up at fantasydraft.com with the referral code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, and you'll get a free 7-day trial membership. Only rake-free daily fantasy site out there, $300,000 rake-free Hooters main event, the biggest one of its kind, and all of the entry fees paid in by the player get paid back out to the player. Use that referral code AWESEMO today. Get your 7-day free membership, and we'll see you over there. That's fantasydraft.com, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. I'm Dave Lochran. With me, as always, Ben Rasa, and the number one ranked daily fantasy player in the universe. We're assuming. We're going to go out and assume. Well, we know it's in the country, but Alex Baker, AWESEMO himself. Fellas, how are we? Ben, you first.
I'm all right. I'm still. It was a wild Saturday. A lot of college football. A lot of Breeders' Cup. You know what? We're here, ready to roll. Nice 10-game slate to break down.
Sure is. How about you, Alex? How are we feeling today?
Doing good. I mean, we got one extra hour to kind of sleep in, as opposed to just getting up real early on a few hours sleep to do some NFL grinding. So, I mean, you got to love it.
Let me just say that I was up, past 1 a.m. yesterday for one reason. The Philadelphia 76ers are legit, boys.
I watched them in the Blazers last night.
Man, they were down by 21. They trailed for 47 minutes and 52 seconds of a 48-minute game. And Ben Simmons hit 2 free throws to put him up top. And, fucking Korkmaz. Oh, man. It was only a week ago that I was screaming on Twitter to get him as far away from the stadium as possible. I'm at blame for that, but what a game. Pretty stoked about it. But we're on to football here, and we've got a pretty awesome format today for today's show. You got the three of us taking you up till around 11:15, 11:20 Eastern time, and then we've got the Inactives report. It's a new show that we're doing. It's going to be 25, maybe 30 minutes long, and we're going to take you through all of the injuries, all of the implications, all of the breaking news leading up to Live Before Lock. Consider it your intermission show, right? Your halftime show for awesemo.com daily NFL content. We think you'll enjoy it. So stick around after our show and before Live Before Lock. Tune in and get all of that information in one spot, not just the info, but the analysis that comes along with it. That'll be coming up directly after us. Let's just jump right into it, fellas. 10 games. So not a ton of contests, a lot of buys. We got a London game right now, right? Kicking off right now, or already did?
Jags, Texans.
Yeah, I honestly forgot who it was because unimportant. Did you showdown it up, Alex?
I should have, man. I saw D.D. Westbrook was out, and maybe some people, they slept in a little bit too long and still had him in their lineups. So, I mean, there's always an edge playing those games where it's at a weird time.
Yeah, my wife is actually in a fantasy league, and I'm pretty sure I forgot to take Westbrook out of her lineups today. She's 7-1 too. It's amazing. Yeah, complete.
Wait, 7-1 with Westbrook.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, I'm 7-1 and her name is on it. But you know how it goes. All right, boys, let's do it. Buffalo, Washington. Now, Ben, actually, no, never mind. I'm sorry. You did the basketball show with me. Thursday's show that I did with Sal Vetri, I mentioned a couple times that we do not have a ton of high totals for this slate. This one is particularly low, 37 point over under. It's the lowest on the slate. But you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games with a total of 43 or lower, and only 10 games on the slate overall. This is one of them. Of course, the Buffalo Bills are 11-point double-digit favorites at home. Washington's 13-point implied total is 4.5 points lower than the next worst team. So expect a barn burner here. These are the type of games that you fall in love with, Ben. Probably not from a DFS standpoint, though.
All true. Can't wait to watch it. Don't really want to play it. Yeah, it's windy. It's cold. The total is dropping. Yeah, just public service announcements. We're going to get to all the games. Don't go buying anything with your winnings after the 1 o'clock slate, because all the hammers are in the late. All the afternoon games have those high totals today.
Absolutely. By the way, Alex with a pretty stellar tweet breaking down today's slate and how we can eat a W and some Hooters wings when it all ends. I like that.
You can't eat a W on the 1 p.m. games.
No, you got to wait.
No, I mean, Alex, are you doing anything with this Buffalo-Washington game? Is there anything that stands out to you here?
Yeah, I mean, well, you guys called it. I mean, the total is remarkably low, and you got to like that for both defenses. The Washington defense, I think the sites are kind of trolling us a little bit because they're lower than pretty much any defense usually is. On DraftKings, they're 1,800. Usually the minimum is 2K. On FanDuel, they're 3K. Usually the minimum is like 4K or so. And Washington's defense isn't bad. They're average. Josh Allen, he throws more picks than average. So I'm seeing some potential there. And maybe if you save some salary at defense, you can be more contrarian with the rest of your lineup. And on the other side, Buffalo's defense is probably the highest projected of the day, with Dwayne Haskins starting for Washington. And I mean, he's thrown 4 picks and 22 passes in his NFL career. So you got to love the potential for Buffalo to take one to the house.
Yeah, he has really struggled. He's been god-awful under pressure. I saw a tweet a couple days ago when he was announced as the starter, Ben, basically said, Brandon Allen is no longer our 28th ranked quarterback for week 9.
That's sad. Yeah, this is the Bills defense, if you can afford them, they're going to be popular, but they do make a very solid play. Certainly in like cash, I think very viable. Tournaments, I try to find just a different defense than the masses usually, but you can look to them. The thing with me, I have a decent amount, and it doesn't feel great, but I have some Josh Allen, particularly paired up with John Brown today. They are at home. They're a heavy favorite. And yes, maybe this is a Frank Gore defense type game. I certainly acknowledge that, but we've seen both Allen and Brown, they have ceilings to them. I don't think the ownership is going to be there in any significant way. So for me, they make an interesting pairing on a week where overall I don't have a ton of, quarterback combos that are like jumping out to me. So I'm more willing to go to something like this.
Okay. By the way, and this is why the intermission show, the Inactives report, will definitely help us out. We got a guy that we brought on recently, Sam Smith, who does a lot of work breaking down, not just the players, but the offense and defensive lines. So I think a lot of times that stuff goes overlooked where it shouldn't. Cody Ford, Ben, right tackle for the Buffalo Bills. He's questionable, and I don't know if he's going to play. That probably will hurt them in the event that he's out.
Yeah, those are the type of things certainly that show is going to talk about, and that I think a lot of people don't dig into, and it makes a huge difference because not that you can play him, but he directly impacts guys that you potentially could. So we have to keep an eye on that. Other than that, though, I really don't have much to say on this game. I rarely get to Cole Beasley. I just don't think the ceiling's high enough. I'm not going to take a stab with Singletary. I think this is a bad game script, and I'm not messing around with any Redskins. Haskins, to me, wipes out the entire offense.
What about the Redskins defense? Do you think they'll just be put in so many unfavorable situations because of their offense?
Very possible. But as Alex talked about, when you play them, you unlock permutations that you just can't get elsewhere.
1,800 on DraftKings is ridiculous.
So, with Josh Allen, who is a guy who's not afraid to, strip sacks, picks, those things are certainly in his arsenal, sadly. You can get there and it kind of unlocks, say you want to pay up for like McCaffrey and Cook or something very aggressive. That's one of the ways to do it.
Agreed. And I'm definitely getting a decent amount of Redskins early on. We'll see where we land on that ultimately. Let's move on then to Carolina and Tennessee. I mean, another pretty low total game, but Alex, it's at least one that has some semblance of talent. And, right now you're talking about a 42.5 total. Panthers are 3.5 point home favorites. 23-point implied total for them, 19.5 for Tennessee. We'll start with Christian McCaffrey here. What do you make of him at, of course, a monstrous price tag across the board? And I don't think there's anybody in their right mind that would argue he shouldn't be, $10K on DraftKings. He shouldn't be $9,700 on FanDuel, or of course, $40 on Yahoo. He's been that good. The question is, will you prioritize him in tournaments today?
Oh, I think that I will. Yeah, I think. There's a lot of chalk running backs this week to choose from. McCaffrey is certainly probably the highest upside one. The game itself isn't that appealing with a pretty low over-under around 40. Carolina is a slight favorite. But that makes me like him a lot instead of love him because we know, he has the biggest workload of any player in the NFL.
Okay. Ben, where are you at on Carolina here? Against the Tennessee defense that I think for the most part has been pretty respectable, right? They certainly aren't stellar, but they're second right now in run defense DVOA and 20th in pass defense. So to some extent, they have been a bit of a run funnel defense. Pro Football Focus actually has them with the top run defense grade ahead of the Steelers, Broncos, Saints, and even the Bucks. Meanwhile, their pass coverage, they have them, 11th. So that's clearly been a weaker spot than the run D, which, according to pretty much everywhere, has been very, very good.
McCaffrey's the kind of guy. We even saw against the Niners. It felt like he didn't even do much, and he still ended with an incredibly respectable line, and he can just do it in so many ways. The one thing the Titans have struggled with, pass catching backs in particular, and we know how good he is in that regard. I do think, though, that if you want to kind of maybe leverage against him, you can look to guys like DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, who's questionable, but I believe he will play. The targets have been there with Kyle Allen. Those are guys that are pretty explosive, middling prices across both, all sites. So I may look to that with Carolina. McCaffrey's the kind of guy, if you're playing any healthy amount of lineups, you need exposure to him because he's one of the few guys on any slate that can just immediately end it. But he's also not a priority where I'm starting with him and working around it.
Okay. I'm on the same page. I really like McCaffrey because he's Christian McCaffrey, but I don't see it being one of those weeks where, like a couple of weeks ago, I think I had like 90% of him. I don't see it being that case. Alex, back to you with the passing game here. Of course, Kyle Allen will make another start. Cam Newton's out in Green Bay getting the second opinion, or at least he was. What do you think of the options here in terms of the pass where you've got DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel? He's, by the way, I thought he was expected to play. Oddly, he was a full participant in Thursday's practice, but he didn't practice Wednesday or Friday. So he had a practice sandwiched in between two games or two practices where he wasn't there at all or didn't practice at all. And then, of course, somebody like Greg Olsen, who has really been a disappointment in large part, seeing only 2 targets in 2 of his last 3 games. What are you doing with the pass?
Well, the remarkable thing about this game is despite Carolina having a 22 over-under, we have 3 chalk players from Carolina, Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, and Christian McCaffrey. Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore are chalk kind of because of the price. Just really budget options for wide receiver 1 and 2. And, the thing is Kyle Allen is super low owned. He's only projected for around 3% ownership across the industry. And what I see there is if these 2 guys are chalk, maybe you can gain a lot of ground on people who pick DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, or Christian McCaffrey by just pairing Kyle Allen up with 2 out of 3 of them.
That's interesting. Just to jump in real quick, Laffy, I had that same thought because, it's guys that I have interest in, but I didn't find myself looking to Allen. But you have to ask yourself, if you really like some of these guys, is the logical point of leverage just the quarterback who is almost always in the mix if you have multiple weapons going off like that?
Right. I actually ended up with, on my initial crunches, of course, this was last night, so I still haven't, a lot is going to change for sure. I got 7% Kyle Allen. So I actually did have some of him. And I think it goes to, just the idea that DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel are at such a discount that I'm probably, just by product of the slate, going to end up with a little bit of Kyle Allen. Don't know how I feel about it, but he's cheap. They're all cheap, and they allow you to, as you talked about, Ben, when you're talking about like getting different type of lineups in with that Washington defense. Having a Carolina stack with the pass catchers and Allen opens up a ton. I don't know how optimal it is, but it's certainly available.
Absolutely. And I think that's really what you're balancing on this slate. There's a lot of, to me, weapons that I like, but the correlation, the pairings, the stacks aren't the best in my opinion. So it's just really finding what can I live with and how can I get over on some of these quarterbacks without, really hedging or allocating a ton of ownership.
Ben, let me stay with you here for a minute on the other side of this game. When you talk about a huge pass or run funnel defense, this would be the Carolina Panthers. On the season, they are a top 5 team in coverage. They've done an excellent job of defending the pass. However, on the ground, they rank 32nd in run defense DVOA. They have really struggled in that respect. And if you watch these games, I mean, teams that are going to run all over them. We saw them get annihilated by Tevin Coleman and company last week, and they didn't even need a ton of opportunities. So, I mean, I see this being a spot where, despite him being a complete a complete non-option in the passing game, Derrick Henry against a team that's allowing 5 yards per attempt this year and 135 rushing yards per game, 12 touchdowns on the ground is the most in the league. Derrick Henry does feel like a spot where he could smash without even having involvement in the passing game because he gives you 150 and 2.
Absolutely. What a difference a week makes, because if you're talking the opposite, the Bucks are the complete funnel to the pass, and that's who they're coming off of playing. Derrick Henry was someone that I actually thought he played pretty well. He did not put up great numbers. I didn't think he would. And I leaned on that passing game, which Corey Davis needs to be jettisoned, but that's neither here nor there. Derrick Henry has a great matchup. I expect them, Tennessee wants to run the ball. We mentioned that last week. This is a perfect blueprint of a defense that has shown, like you said, the Niners absolutely torched them with Coleman. Deebo Samuel was running for touchdowns. Everyone was. So I expect a healthy dose of Henry across all formats. I think he's in play.
Okay. What about you, Alex?
I think Henry is a sensible option. The opportunity cost at running back is quite high today, though, with guys like McCaffrey, Samuels. Derrick Henry kind of falls in the mid-range, so he may go overlooked to some extent. But this is probably one of the cheaper prices you're going to get him because he hasn't really had a big game since week 1 this year. And I think that pretty even matchup between Tennessee and Carolina. So he has a good shot of getting a game where he could win your GPP.
Are you interested in any passing options from the Tennessee side?
I don't think so. If I had to go to one, maybe Corey Davis. He isn't a great value, but he's the guy I have rated the highest.
How about you, Ben?
No, it would be Jonnu Smith. But I was very disappointed with the Titans passing attack last week. Davis was a no-show. A.J. Brown shows flashes, just very hard to peg the production. And I don't, as you mentioned, I think Tennessee really leans on the run game here.
Yeah, I would be shocked if they didn't, but you know what? Crazier things have happened. Let's take it to the next one here. Still 8 to go. We've got Kansas City. We've got Minnesota. Patrick Mahomes had been questionable throughout the week, but I think there was a sense when they signed another quarterback that he wasn't going to play. So he's not expected to play in this one. And Alex, we didn't really have totals on this game throughout the week. We didn't have a line or anything for most of the week because we didn't know what Mahomes' status would be. And it just goes to show how immense of an impact he has on this game. Chiefs have a 21-point implied total. I mentioned this last week against Green Bay. If Mahomes was in there, their 23-point total probably would have been like 30, and they would have been 5-point favorites instead of 3-point dogs. I mean, he changes everything. 46 over under. The Vikings are 4-point favorites on the road. And by the way, 46-point over under doesn't seem like a ton, but when you're looking at games that are higher, it's the Seattle and Tampa game, Oakland, Detroit, Chargers, and Green Bay, and that's it. So this is actually one of the higher projected scoring games on the week, believe it or not.
Yeah, I think that this is an interesting spot. Matt Moore, I have him as about an average quarterback. And that's good enough to give Kansas City a pretty good chance of having a good day because they got such great talents in Tyreek Hill and Kelsey along with Sammy Watkins. The problem is you're paying up for these guys as if Mahomes is throwing to them. So they are quite expensive today. But it could be the ultimate pay up to be contrarian spot.
Okay. Ben?
So Tyreek Hill is someone I've talked about at length. Salary, I understand the opportunity of course, but he's pretty binary. If he breaks a couple, he's going to pay off a 9K price tag, an 8K, a 7K, it doesn't really matter. And if he doesn't, probably not going to be in anything major. So with the ownership certainly going to be leaving because of no Mahomes, I actually like Tyreek Hill in this spot. Moore is competent enough. I hope that they, try to get him the ball maybe in some easier spots and get him in space. I don't worry about Xavier Rhodes. I think this is the exact type of player that he would struggle with, a short, really quick guy that we know how fast he is. So I have some interest in Hill and Kelsey, even though they, as Alex talked about, they are priced as if Mahomes is playing.
Would you say in terms of interest that they're top options or just guys in tournaments that you think give you some leverage?
So I don't think I can get there in a cash setting just because of the unknown with how they're going to use these guys with Moore under center. But for me, they make premier. I think with most people paying up at running back this week, someone like Tyreek Hill is going to be lost in the shuffle. And he is someone we know week in and week out, he can give you 4 catches, $130 and 2. Like that is right in his wheelhouse. So I have a lot of interest in him kind of going against the grain.
All right. So Alex, I really like Dalvin Cook this week. And I think a lot of it comes down to, hey, he's pretty closely priced to Christian McCaffrey. And that's definitely going to swing things a bit when you have Dalvin Cook, $9,500 on DraftKings and of course, $9K on FanDuel. He's up there, but Kansas City's run defense isn't bad. It's awful. I mean, they are absolutely dreadful in pretty much every respect. They've allowed double-digit rushing touchdowns on the season already, 145 rushing yards per game. That is the third worst in the league. They're also allowing the third most yards per attempt. Football Outsiders has them as a bottom 3 defense. I still think they finish last, and Pro Football Focus has them dead last in run defense grades. So if there was ever a spot for Dalvin Cook to actually have his biggest game of the season, this feels like it could be the one, especially knowing that with Matt Moore at the helm for Kansas City, they probably don't jump out to a big early lead like they may have if Mahomes was there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous spot for Dalvin Cook. He's one of the highest projected players of the week for certain. But I think he's just overpriced compared to his role on the team. When you compare him to a guy like McCaffrey, he gets a larger share of the workload in running attempts and passing. And McCaffrey doesn't compete with guys like Diggs and Thielen for targets. So he's a much easier person to get to for me if they're about the same price, even though Minnesota has a much better matchup.
Okay. Yeah. And Ben, I think that's probably where a lot of people will be here. And I do understand it. I do. I mean, McCaffrey is averaging 27 looks per game, total looks per game. I do think, to be fair though, Dalvin Cook's averaging 24 total looks per game. And there was a game against Philly where in a blowout, Alexander Madison came in there and got the bulk of the opportunities towards the end. So I still think Dalvin Cook, and this I wouldn't be against someone telling me I'm wrong here because of Christian McCaffrey, but I think it's closer than it looks. I'm assuming you're higher on McCaffrey by a lot than Dalvin Cook.
No, not by a lot. I have it pretty close actually. It's an interesting thing because on the obvious points to make, Christian McCaffrey doesn't have a Madison pushing him, and that's someone that's going to take a handful of carries, and those count when you're talking about these price tags. But on the flip side, the Vikings run the ball so much, and in this environment, they can coexist where, as you just mentioned, Dalvin Cook is getting enough touches to justify this price point. And if you look at his season, outside of the Bears and the Eagles, and this is when the Bears were competent, he's basically torched every subpar run defense that he's seen. This is one of the better matchups. This is a close competitive game. So the volume should be there. I have them pretty close. I do have McCaffrey ahead of him, but not by a lot.
Yeah, I have him ahead of him, but also not by a lot. Talking about the rest of this Minnesota team, is there anything here for you, Ben, knowing that, by the way, this is another team in Kansas City that I'm not going to crown them as a top pass defense at all, but I would say that they have funneled a lot to the run game just because of how bad their run defense has been. So it's less about how good their pass defense has been and how horrible their run defense has been. But Football Outsiders does have Kansas City with a top 4 pass defense DVOA. What do you make of the pass options or the receiving options for the Vikings?
I probably am just not going to get to them, and it's nothing against the spot. I don't think Kansas City's secondary is that good. I just don't know if I'm going to have the salary to pay up, and you still have 2 of them. It looks like Thielen is going to play with the hamstring. We know Diggs can explode. I just don't love the spot. So for me, I get it. In a perfect world, I'd be able to get a little leverage on these type of guys, but with someone like Tyreek and some other guys in other games, they're towards the bottom of my priority list.
Okay. How about you, Alex?
Yeah, I think I'm more interested in the Minnesota side than the Kansas City side as far as receivers. I feel like Kirk Cousins. Let me pull up my top stacks tool here and give some context. But I think that Kansas City is contrarian, but they're just overpriced to some extent. Minnesota is equally contrarian, but they're the team with the higher team total if they were to win. I have them as about a 5% chance of being the top stack today, and only around 2.5% ownership for Cousins. And when you got guys like Diggs and Thielen to pair them with, I think that could be a nice stack.
Okay. You guys want to move on to the next one, or do you want to cover anything else here?
I think if you want to be really aggressive, the Vikings defense is a off-the-wall type play.
Okay. You're not totally opposed to it, is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. Absolutely.
All right. Here we go, boys. New York Jets, Miami Dolphins. Let the excitement ensue. We've got a horrible game that actually has some pretty appealing fantasy value. I mean, Ben, it's a 42.5 total. Jets are 3-point favorites, which says enough, right? Like we could end it there. They're 3-point favorites on the road. 19.8 implied total for the Dolphins, who just put Xavier Howard on the IR. Ken Webster is already out. I think that Ryan Lewis should be playing, but I mean, they're just, or sorry, Ryan Grant, I can't even remember his name now. Forgive me. Ryan Lewis. No, it's Ryan Lewis. But they're down already a lot of guys, and they've been terrible to begin with in every in every facet of the defense. So does Darnold, who has 8 picks and 2 fumbles over his last 2 games, finally get back on track?
I hope so. I think so. I mean, this is a game. We've seen this throughout the year. It was the Bengals and someone earlier in the year, and it was a game that I really liked. A lot of people liked. We saw them and the Cardinals. They kicked about 10 field goals in that game. Those are the type of things you see with bad teams, but there is no doubt that this environment could produce a ton of fantasy value. These guys are all very cheap because they're on bad teams. They're easy to stack, and both teams are equally inept. So you look at Darnold, then you have Le'Veon Bell, who makes I think a very obvious, solid play. They need to get him the ball more, and I expect they will in this environment. Then you have guys like Robbie Anderson, Crowder, Demarius. I mean, there are options if you want to take the plunge with Darnold.
Oh, man.
I'm doing it for what it's worth. I absolutely have some Darnold.
How much is the question? That's what I want to know. Let's get let's get down to it, Ben. How much do you think you're going to have of Sam Darnold? Because, one of 50 lineups is a lot different than 10 of 50 lineups.
Yeah, I expect I'll have, 20%, something like that. Nothing where I'm overhauling it, but he's going to be one of my main quarterbacks on this slate. I think there's a lot of ways to pair him up. I wish we had clarity on Herndon because I think that's another way to do it. Maybe you go to Ryan Griffin. I'm not sure that's at my ideal situation, but Darnold is somebody that I have interest in, along with, and we'll talk about Fitzmagic in a second. I think you can do a lot of things with this game.
Adam Gase did suggest that Herndon was probably not going to play, but we'll see. Here's what before I go to Alex, I want to make sure we can nail this down. When you talk about there are many ways to pair him, are you willing to pair Darnold with Le'Veon Bell? Normal, 5 weeks ago it would have been like, yeah, of course, but he has not been nearly as involved in the passing game recently, and it's odd that they've tried to get away from that, especially when playing from behind. Maybe they get back to it, but I have this feeling where if I have Darnold, I don't really want Le'Veon Bell because I could see this being a game, and Miami, teams who have faced Miami have done this a lot. I could see this being a game where if Le'Veon Bell actually gets going and the line holds up just enough to make him look good, he is good, or to help him be better, they might just run all over them and not really need to feature Bell in the pass game, which they haven't done even when they were playing from behind since Sam Darnold returned. Only 10 targets for Bell with Darnold back under center.
I am doing it, but I don't think it's the perfect. I agree with what you're saying. I think for Darnold to have the ceiling game that you're really looking for, it's more with the outside weapons. Le'Veon is just so polarizing for the Jets to, say I think, okay, I'm going for them to hang 30 plus points in this game. I don't see that many ways where he's not an integral part of it, and that can coexist with Darnold. I do think the targets go up relative to what we've seen recently.
Okay, fair enough. How about you, Alex? We got Ben's full take on the Jets. Where are you at on this whole team?
I think you gotta like it when two really bad teams face up against each other, especially when they're both bad on the defensive end. However, my prognostication ability is really correlated with the amount of likes on the video. So make sure give us some likes so that we get this one right, because I think this one might be crucial for DFS today. And the reason why, you got two pretty good options in Le'Veon Bell versus Miami and Mark Walton on the other side versus the Jets. Bell, if you told me 2 years ago, Bell versus Miami, that would be the ultimate smash spot. But on the Jets, they haven't been that good at running the ball. So I still think he's one of the top plays of the week, though, just because when you have a guy that makes up such a large workload on a team that's favored, that gives a lot of fantasy value in itself.
All right.
And then Walton, I think, is a pretty good option just because he's cheap. And we saw that unless Balaj really gets it going, Walton's going to be the guy in Miami.
Yeah, Kalen Balaj isn't going to get shit going. I have a pretty good feeling about that. You're 100% right. Like, if he does, then goodbye, Walton. But it sure seems like, and this is crazy because I liked Kalen Balaj coming into this year. If you would have told me that Kenyon Drake wouldn't be there at week 9 before the season started, I'd be really happy about it. But it just, Mark Walton's been the markedly better running back.
Yeah, that probably doesn't say that much, I imagine. No. But he's good enough for me for DFS. The thing I really like about Walton, he's been targeted at a high rate. He ran routes on almost 3/4 of the passing plays last week. And he gets targeted about 20% of the time he runs a route, and that adds up to some nice PPR points.
All right. So, Ben, let me ask you this. How much do you like Robbie Anderson?
The thing about Robbie Anderson is that he's in the Tyreek, Will Fuller bucket of, if you don't get it right, it's probably going horribly wrong. He doesn't have a lot of middling games, which is in tournaments. That's what you're kind of looking for. But this is the week. I think a lot of people say, oh, this is Robbie Anderson week. We've seen it with Will Fuller. So when the ownership comes, it's a little difficult. I certainly have interest because I have interest in this Jets team, but I'm not opposed to maybe trying to be different within the Jets. And that starts with, kind of going against the grain in certain spots with Anderson.
One of the ways I see it is we had a lot of calls. We have Sirius XM Fantasy hosts Awesome-O Radio Saturday and Sunday, Saturday 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern and Sunday 7 to 9. So be sure to check that out. These guys will be joining us for sure in the coming weeks. But I had a bunch of questions. Hey, Robbie Anderson or Chris Carson? Robbie Anderson or insert good player with a lot of volume in a difficult matchup. I mean, Ben, I think ultimately I'm still going to take the guys with the high volume that are guaranteed to get the workload over Robbie Anderson. So just that's how I can kind of put it in context. I like Robbie Anderson. I do, but I don't like him more than guys where I'm hoping he can produce, and other guys I know they'll have the opportunity to produce every week.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. And this is a very good opportunity for Robbie Anderson, but the way he plays, it's so boom and bust. It's very hard to nail down. And when the ownership starts to mass, it's a tough sell for me. So I get it. It's not to say he can't have a big game, and it's not to say I won't have some exposure, but it's not something where I'm overhauling my lineups to get Robbie Anderson as a one-off.
Okay. What about the Dolphins? We already got some input from Alex on them. Do you like Walton or anybody here opposing the New York Jets?
So I like the Dolphins a good amount too. I think Walton that we saw against Pittsburgh, he's going to have a role basically regardless of the game script. They like him. He's kind of a dual threat back, but I'm not. Devontae Parker is finding the end zone, it's more impressive than you think considering it's Miami. And then you have Preston Williams, who's another target. They're both super affordable. You could pair them with Fitzpatrick. You could take them running it back with jet stacks. There's a lot to like here, in my opinion, with the skill positions on the Dolphins.
Alex, top plays from this game.
I think Walton and Bell are the top plays, but I don't mind going to any of the guys you guys have mentioned because, I mean, these guys are pretty cheap because the Jets and Dolphins haven't produced to this point. And this is a really favorable spot for any player. When it comes to Robbie Anderson, though, I think he really showed he had big games last year. But now with Demaryius Thomas and Crowder on the team and Bell, I mean, those guys are 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D in the passing game. So it's really hard to just pick one guy.
Okay. Let's keep it moving then, fellas. Ben, unless you have anything else here.
No, it's a game that, as Alex kind of just alluded to, I think it's a very difficult game to separate the targets and the priorities, but they're also cheap. It's an easy game, in my opinion, to stack.
Okay. Your favorite plays from this one, either side?
In total agreement, Walton and Le'Veon, and then the Miami pass catchers, Preston or Parker.
Okay. Talk about Philly and Chicago, Alex. Your Bears, my Eagles. Should be an ugly game. Yeah, it should. I was actually just watching a video that my wife took during the Eagles Bears game last year where, they line up for the field goal and I'm saying, it's over. We should have won this damn game. We suck. And then and they miss it because I'm an eternal pessimist. I have to be. That's the only way to cope with being an Eagles fan. I think you could probably relate out there in Chicago, but I don't know what to make of this game. Pretty much, I don't have a ton of interest in it. It's got a low total at 41. Deshaun Jackson is expected to play, but the reports are that he's going to be playing through pain, which isn't that encouraging. Eagles are 4-point favorites, 22.5 total, 18.5 for the Bears. And of course, 4 points at home. Are you targeting either side of this? Because for me, I think Allen Robinson could be a really interesting play, even though Philly's getting a bit healthier in the secondary. But he's pretty much the only guy I really like.
Yeah, man, you gave me so much there.
That's what I do, baby.
PTSD from that game last year where, I mean, they had Cody Parkey, I believe, and he got blocked or whatever.
Yep.
And, I mean, I thought when they signed Eddie De Niro, their kicking woes were over, but then they lost the game at the end of a last-second field goal. He missed the field goal last week, so really, really some bad kicking for the Bears. Unfortunately, that is completely irrelevant in DFS unless you're playing some crazy showdown slate. So ignore everything I just said. But I think Allen Robinson has been doing pretty well this year. I might take some stabs there. Mitchell Trubisky, somehow 2% of people were projecting to be crazy enough to click that button. I don't think I'll be one of them because he's averaged around 6 yards per attempt this year. That's not going to get the job done. And then for Philadelphia, it's a pretty tough matchup versus the Bears D. So it's going to be hard for me to land on any of those guys either.
Ben, are you in the same position? And like I said, I do like Allen Robinson. Talk to me about anyone from this game that you like, if there is anybody.
Not much to say. Yeah, I mean, I looked closely at Trubisky because I think this is a type of game he could thrive in, but he's just not running like he used to, and he's just bad, so that doesn't help. So I ultimately am not going to get there. Either Allen Robinson, it's incredible what he's done despite the QB play in Chicago. If he had a competent guy under center, he'd be certainly more priced up. The spot I want to bring up to you guys, and I know, Luffy, this is your account, Jordan Howard, not just because of the revenge narrative, but the Bears really haven't been strong defending the rush recently. They've been gashed at times. We know Sanders is there. We know Jordan Howard is that kind of bell cow back. Do you have any interest in going, I know he's not going to catch a lot, but thinking maybe the Eagles control this game with the rushing attack?
I think it's possible. I do think it's possible. However, I don't know how necessary it is to get to Howard. And that's, he's been a lot better than his, early stats would suggest. Like he's been very productive for this team. He helps them move the chains. And the big thing is he's never going to be that guy that's breaking off 40, 50-yard runs. He's move the chains, 10 yards, 8 yards, 6 yards, 12 yards. And that can still be very valuable. But at this price, which I think is reasonable, however, when you combine it with the matchup, even though the Bears have struggled a bit in the run game defensively, I still think Jordan Howard's a bit unnecessary. I don't think the ceiling is there on a week where, as Alex pointed out, the opportunity cost at running back is pretty high.
That's fair. It would certainly be against the grain, but in a game like this, that's about all I can really say. I don't see a ton of reason to reach for guys. I've seen some Taylor Gabriel chat. I mean, I get it if you're looking for an extreme flyer, but it seems really unnecessary.
Yeah. Alex, you want to add anything on this?
Yeah. I'll throw Darren Sproles back for the Eagles, so that makes it even murkier at running back.
Top play? I'm saying Darren Sproles is the top.
Yeah. I have him right up there as my running back one with Boston Scott.
You are the Eagles whisperer because you bring up Myles Sanders in weeks where I'm just like, I didn't even know he was on the slate. And then 2 hours later on the Red Zone channel, he's catching 80-yard touchdown passes somehow. But
dude, I'll tell you what, Myles Sanders has been insane as a pass catcher. They run this wheel route, whether it's the left or right side of the field, and get him matched up with a linebacker. And it's like every single time he catches for 40 plus yards. And finally he had a rushing attempt for 65, but you're right. I believe Alex did mention him last week.
No, he mentions him frequently, and then I disregarded. And that is why I'm me and he's him, because it's incredibly disturbing, the amount of wheel routes. You're right, Laffy, that guy catches.
That was good.
Okay.
All right. Let's talk about Pittsburgh and Indy. Before we do, though, I should let you know that NFL strategy, that's wrong. Deeper dive, all one word. I do too many shows, man. Deeper dive, all one word, is how you can get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus subscription. Can't beat that, let me tell you. And we also have, if you didn't want to do that, right? If you didn't want to dive right in, we got a $3.95 per week express package. And if you go to awesemo.com/join, AWESEMO.com, I'll trust that you can spell join. Go scroll down. You'll see how Awesemo works. Little page here where you have videos to learn how to use the player projections, the ownership projections, the lineup builder, the top stacks, our premium Slack, and so much more. And if you're at the top of the page and you click start membership, we'll ask you a question. What type of player are you? Serious, professional, hobbyist, and cater the package around you. And Alex, I know when starting Awesemo.com. That was kind of what you wanted to do, right? Not have a service that was way too much for everyone, way too little, without any ability to kind of customize what you need. And I think you've done a really great job of doing that. So now, potential prospective subs can pick out what they want and how much they want to pay.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think that we discussed coming out with some advanced packages, but I mean, I think that if you get Fantasy Cruncher and you get the full package, it's like $100 a month about, and that's kind of like in the wheelhouse of anyone who wants to be like a serious fantasy player. But we want to make sure that we're not charging exorbitant amounts for anything. And we also came, as you were mentioning, the express packages. We're trying to solve this problem where a lot of people, they'll play, a few lineups every week, maybe put in the $20 every time they play. And it doesn't really make sense from a financial standpoint to pay $60 for a month for a package. So kind of got this introductory package that you can get, kind of ease yourself into playing DFS.
Okay. And Ben, because we do have a little time here, I just wanted to ask, what type of work are you doing with Awesemo odds over here? And what do we have for those that like to dip their feet into the sports betting pool?
Definitely. So, in addition to all the content that they have, I'm writing a ton, doing a lot of breakdowns on the betting side, different things like the Breeders' Cup. I had an article, and we actually plan in the near future to add some tools. So similar to what Alex has produced on the DFS side, some things that if you are, betting sports, you can analyze, you can kind of anticipate some things, and you can really look at your own game, because I think that is underutilized on sports betting. People bet week after week and they don't take the time to say, oh, wow, I'm betting only road dogs or only home favorites or only teams that are laying 10 or more. You can kind of identify maybe some leaks. And that's some of the stuff we're trying to do over at Awesemo.
Beautiful. Let's keep it moving here, boys. Oh, Deeper Dive, by the way, one word. Deeper Dive gets you 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus subscription. And you get that Fantasy Cruncher add-on as well. Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Ben. When I ran initial crunches, I got 100% Jalen Samuel, and I wasn't fazed by it. Like certain guys, I just don't know how I get away from it. If he gets injured, if he has a terrible game, I'm willing to live with that, because how do I get away from somebody who, James Conner is not expected to play, not officially out yet, I don't believe. Benny Snell's already ruled out. I mean, it's Trey Edmonds who is the number 2 running back this week. Mike Tomlin has already done everything in his that he possibly can to make sure that Mason Rudolph doesn't look terrible. And, to some extent he's succeeded, but even against Miami, that first half was terrible for Rudolph. The way they've done this is just pound the rock and use the running backs as an extension of the run game against an Indianapolis team that on the season ranks 29th in run defense DVOA, according to Football Outsiders. Not much better on Pro Football Focus, actually worst, 31st, better than only the Kansas City Chiefs. They've really been gutted in the run game this season. The only thing they've done well is they have limited receptions, but to running backs, but they're still allowing like the 12th most targets to running backs per game. So it's a very good spot for Samuel. He's way too cheap. How do you get away from it?
Yeah, I don't know if you do. It's the only, I think you can sum it up. The only thing that I could say against the play is that he's going to be astronomically popular, right, and coming off a week where Latavius Murray instantly became a must-have early in that slate. I think people are even going to be more apt to take the quote-unquote free square. So in cash, I don't think there's any discussion you play him. I certainly am going to have plenty in tournaments, but there will be, in some maybe smaller field, single entry type things where I think he could legitimately push 75, 80%. Yeah. And this is football. So this is not basketball where you have a 3K point guard. There's a range of outcomes still. So in something like that, I think you can get away, but overall, he is the premier obvious punt play on the entire slate.
I agree with you. Alex, it is your specialty finding, the anti-optimizer guys and getting away from the field. So very curious to know what your take is on Jalen Samuel. And if you have any interest in getting away from him at, $4,000 on DraftKings, pretty much wherever you look, Jalen Samuel is cheap. He's $5,000 on FanDuel. Minimum salary there is $4,500, so that's pretty absurd. Just pretty much go across the board and everywhere. He's super discounted. Same with fantasy draft.
Yeah, you got a lot of Samuels tonight or today. I think that spot isn't ideal. Pittsburgh, a tough matchup with Indiana, but they just really don't have much depth at the running back position, and his specialty is really catching passes. So if they're running him out there all game, you gotta expect that he's going to be running a lot of routes, and that'll be really good for fantasy value, and it gives you kind of a floor of those points you get for receptions. So I think he's a pretty safe bet. I don't think he's mandatory. I mean, this might sound like ridiculous, but there are alternatives that are good plays, but not as great, like Mark Walton. I mean, you can't love pivoting from Jalen Samuels to Mark Walton, but I think that you do gain some leverage over the field if you don't have Samuels. So I think maybe that 50% that he's coming in at in our ownership projections is about where he should be.
Okay. Makes sense. What are your thoughts on the rest of this Pittsburgh team? Is there anything you want to get to outside of Jalen Samuel?
Nah, not really. I mean, Juju had kind of a good game last week, but he's pretty expensive, which is surprising given his performance this year being pretty miserable. But
yeah,
I'm not seeing anything besides Samuels, to be honest.
How about you, Ben?
No, I mean, the Steelers, they played the Dolphins. That's why good things happened, because the Dolphins called a cover 0 all-out blitz on a 3rd and 20 for no reason. Other than that, I'm not messing around with the Steelers today.
Yeah, I tell you what, this passing game is something that, if possible, I'd like to stay away from. I just don't see any value there, and you kind of just hit on everything. What about the Colts side for you? T.Y. Hilton sidelined. That just makes this game outside of Samuel pretty ugly. I mean, maybe Pascal is in play, but 40.5 over under. Both teams have right around a 20-point implied total. I guess the only benefit is it should stay competitive.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't have, I'll pass it back pretty quick. I don't have much to say. Hilton being out, I think most people are going to look, and I get that Pascal is certainly going to benefit, but there's a lot of guys there. I mean, I don't think it's just a direct impact to him. You have Rodgers, Campbell, the tight ends, and then you have Marlon Mack. So there's just a lot of plays on a Colts team that I have a difficult, hierarchy of. So in a game on the road, I think I can get by without having much exposure.
How about you, Alex?
Yeah, I think Pascal would be the guy I'd be interested in, but as Ben said, there's just too many guys in the rotation at wideout, and even the tight ends kind of split the time with Doyle and Ebron. And Indianapolis just doesn't pass the ball very much, so I don't love anyone on the team, but Mac potentially could be a play. He's pretty expensive on most sites, though.
Okay. Well, we got 4 games to go here, boys. Here's a pretty enticing one, Alex. Oakland and Detroit. Expect this game to see quite a bit of scoring. It's tied with the Seahawks and Bucks with the highest over-under at 51. The Raiders, 2.5-point home favorites. They've been pretty impressive. As a matter of fact, they're the only team in the NFL to have at least 3 offensive touchdowns in 4 straight weeks. What do you make of 2 teams with pretty respectable totals? 26.8 for Oakland, 24.3 for Detroit. Do you like this game as much as many other people do?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta love this game. Both matchups, as far as defense, are pretty favorable. I think that Oakland gives up a lot of yards to passing and not as many to running, which is fine because the Detroit running back situation isn't the best. Detroit is kind of giving up more yards than average, both running and passing. So I think that with both offenses being pretty powerful as far as efficiency, I think that there's going to be a lot of fantasy value in this game.
Okay. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, you got to like this game. Oakland back home, first time since week 2. which is just unbelievable to think about. So, that is a boost to them. And
Wait, what did you just say? Is that accurate?
Yeah, Oakland hasn't played a home game since week 2. How crazy is that? So they were in London against the Bears, and other than that, they've been on the road. It's insane.
That's crazy.
Months.
Sorry,
it is nice for them to be back. Hopefully the baseball field, I assume that's gone. That's neither here nor there, though. You look at this Detroit secondary, I think that Slay is scheduled to play. Keep an eye on that. But other than that, they're still very banged up. They traded Diggs. This is a situation that Derek Carr, Tyrell Williams, Waller, I have no problem with any of them. And then as Alex said, if you don't want to go that route, you have Jacobs on the ground, who we know they will give a healthy workload, especially if they have the game script and they are favored in this game. So I like Oakland a lot. And then you have vital guys on the Lions side if you do want to stack it up.
Who are your top plays from the Oakland side, Alex? Anybody you really like? Darren Waller's price point has come up. Tyrell Williams has been solid enough. He's scored in each of the 5 games he's been healthy for this season. The yardage has been up and down for sure, but he is still getting targeted in the red zone, and he's made a few long receptions. So there is some upside. And then, of course, Josh Jacobs is the clear number 1 bell cow back. There's no dispute there. There shouldn't have been to start the season, and there certainly isn't now. What are your thoughts on Oakland here as a team?
I think that Darren Waller would probably be the guy that is the best play because his stats have just been insane this year. Almost 80% catch rate for almost 11 yards per catch. And you add that up, you're at more than 8 yards per target. And he gets targeted a lot. So that's going to add up really quick for PPR. And he fills a position where there aren't a lot of good options at tight end. So he'd be my top play, but I also really like Josh Jacobs for the reasons you guys mentioned.
Yeah, I tell you, the tight end position's pretty ugly this week.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any Kittle. Ertz is kind of on the downswing, so Waller's your new guy.
Yep, pretty much. Ben, what about you in terms of the tight end conversation?
So that's the thing. Waller, not only is he just a good play in a vacuum, he fills what can be a very difficult spot, regardless if you want to pay up or pay down. Kelsey, we already talked about Matt Moore kind of making him somewhat overpriced, even though he's great. There's not a lot of cheap options. So Waller, to me, makes the most sense in a game that I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of interest in.
Okay. Detroit side of the ball, Alex, Amendola coming off a strong game. He's actually been pretty decent this season. He's had a few spots where he's gone 20+ fantasy points, which is uncharacteristic. But you know what? He's actually had some big plays, which is nice to see. I mention him only because most weeks it's Galladay and then it's Marvin Jones. But Galladay's price is up there for sure. Marvin Jones is pretty pricey. Amendola is pretty affordable. I think definitely one of the more volatile guys. But so is Marvin Jones. How are you attacking this Matt Stafford and this passing game for Detroit against an Oakland passing defense or secondary? Sorry, that is 29th in DVOA. They've also had a much better run defense than pass defense this season.
I mean, you gotta love Stafford's chances because Oakland's D is pretty weak this season on the passing plays, and he's averaged more than 8 yards per attempt this season in a game where they're a slight underdog. I've seen the props for Stafford be in the area of 300, and that's high. Crazy. Yeah, I mean that's as high as like Mahomes. So I'm not calling that Matt Stafford will go out and pull Mahomes this week, but potential's there, and he's got good weapons in Amendola, as you mentioned, Jones, Galladay. The only problem is that these guys are quite expensive, so you're going to have to pay for it.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. When it comes to Stafford's price tag, like, are you willing to get there where, he's 7,200 on DraftKings, which, might not sound like a lot, but when you compare it to the rest of the quarterbacks, he's the third highest priced 6,200. He's the third highest priced quarterback on this slate. what are you doing with him there? $7,900 on FanDuel. Like, you're definitely going to have to pay for Stafford, as you pointed out. I guess the biggest question is it worth it to you?
That's a tough question. I have to. It's definitely a pay up to be contrarian spot. We have Stafford is also projected to be pretty popular, so maybe just a pay up spot. But I think it's worth getting to because they do have such a good chance of performing today. Having them about 10% chance of being the top stack on the slate, and that means 1 out of 10 times you're going to need the Lions stack. The difficulty is choosing the guys. Maybe you save some salary with Hawkinson at tight end and use that to pay up for Galladay or something.
Ben, what about you? Is it worth it?
It's really tough because I think they're overpriced, and I don't think you're getting an ownership discount to offset that. I think they're going to be a really popular choice. So for me, if I do stack Stafford, I'm going to go against the grain and probably try to get away with guys like Marvin Jones, Amendola, and not have Galladay in a ton of it. That is a premier stack. If you use him, Stafford, and another pass catcher, you need it all to funnel there. I know it can happen, but I don't think most of my lineups are going to be allocated like that.
Okay. Who are your top plays from this game?
For me, it's on the Oakland side. It would be Waller and Josh Jacobs.
Top plays in this game for you, Alex?
So Waller and Jacobs. I'll throw out some love to Ty Johnson. I mean, last week he burned us all, but Troy Carson is he's not on the roster anymore due to injury, so Ty Johnson should slide back as the number 1 running back. He's really cheap on Yahoo, which is the site I play on.
I think that's a really important point to make because Trick Carson hitting the IR saw 12 carries last week. But the big thing is that Ty Johnson was actually involved in the passing game. He did see 4 targets in back-to-back weeks. Meanwhile, J.D. McKissic saw actually less targets last week and the week before than Ty Johnson did. So I think there is opportunity, even though it's a pretty tough ground matchup. I think there is opportunity for Ty Johnson to be involved for sure. In week 7, he did see 3 touches in the red zone, which is pretty encouraging. He led running backs in targets last week, again, ahead of McKissic. And he actually had some opportunities that were squandered either by his fault or Stafford. But I mean, ultimately, when you look at the snap counts, he had 40% last week. Carson had 30. Nick Bawden had 24. J.D. McKissic had 25. It was all over the place. But I have trouble believing that Perkins, who played 10% of the snaps, is going to eat all of Carson's up. I think you could see that be Ty Johnson. Ben, any thoughts on Johnson before we move on?
I think it's interesting only in the sense that when you have a lightning rod like Jalen Samuels in the cheap running back, he sucks up all the ownership. So if you can find the one-off, you're going to get 1/10 of the ownership on someone like Ty Johnson. So that's somewhat interesting, but I do have him behind guys like Walton in the same area. Okay.
Yeah, reasonable point. Stick with you, Ben. Back-to-back games with tied for the highest total, 51 points. Over-unders 51 for Seattle and Tampa Bay. Seattle 5-point favorites, 28-point implied total. That's the highest on this slate, 23 points for the Bucs. Let's start first with Chris Carson, then we can talk about the passing game. You alluded to it earlier. This is a big-time pass funnel defense in Tampa. They rank number 1 in run defense DVOA on Football Outsiders, 26th in pass defense. If you just look at some of the raw numbers, it doesn't get much better through the air. But on the ground, 3 yards per attempt for the Bucs. That is dead last in the league. Only 68 yards per game for this Tampa Bay Bucs defense. They've been very solid. They're allowing the second most passing yards, though, and they've been carved up in terms of long plays this season with 30 plays of 20-plus yards, and the attempts per game is exceeding 40. No one's throwing against the Bucs, or no one's throwing against the team more than they're throwing against the Bucs this season. By the way, Detroit's second, 40.3 attempts per game against them, which makes Carr kind of interesting. But talk to me about this matchup for Carson.
This is going to be really interesting because Seattle is the team that wants to run the ball. We've seen that time and time again. But the logical thing you just you just illustrated it, is that they should open Wilson up, lock it up, Metcalf up. I think that Seattle is going at home to still not alter their plan and still run Carson a bunch. I don't expect it to be wildly effective. I don't expect it to be so ineffective that they abandon it. And I think there is a very real scenario that really stifles what is going to be a popular Wilson, Lockett, Metcalf stack. Volume is the only issue that I have with them. If they get the chances, they should perform. I just don't know how often we see that, especially if Seattle doesn't fall behind.
By the way, it's funny. A tweet just came out from Adam Schefter that said the Seahawks did their due diligence on Antonio Brown before claiming Josh Gordon. Who would have thought? Anyway, over to you then. Talk to me about this same thing, Alex, because it's a big spot. Chris Carson and how Seattle, how their offense functions today.
I think that it's kind of a double whammy for Carson because Tampa Bay's run defense is above average considerably, but also because Seattle tends to throw the ball into the end zone more than run it in compared to other teams. So and that's a trend that's kind of persisted every single year since over the past few. And that I'm just not seeing Carson as really a top play this week for those reasons. But I think that on Yahoo, where he's insanely cheap, he's kind of the chalk play there.
Are you considering Wilson and his pass catchers top plays today?
Absolutely. I mean, Wilson, he's the most popular quarterback of the week. And that's for good reason. I mean, he's been exceptional this year. He's averaged more than 8 yards per pass. I think Lockett's a really good play. Just insane efficiency whenever he's throwing the ball. Once you get down to Metcalf, I get really, really skeptical because he's expensive and he's chalk. I don't think that he's a high enough value player to really justify that. So on the contrary, I said he was my fade of the week. I stand by that 100%, 1,000%.
1,000%. Okay, so tell me this then: if you're playing one lineup in a tournament and you're playing Wilson, who are you pairing him with in the one lineup that you're playing?
Lockett. I'd probably just do a one-person stack, but I don't want to go on the record for this because someone, when I win $1 million, they're going to be like, God damn it, I would have played Lockett and Metcalf, except Alex said he wasn't going to.
You had Jaron Brown in there too, and he goes for 40. Yeah, that's just how it works. Ben, favorite options for the passing game?
It's got to be Lockett, but I think it is all contingent that Seattle's open it up. The efficiency is always there, but the volume sometimes is not. So if Jameis has 10 turnovers in the last 2 games. If he gives them short fields, this could be a game where Seattle is able to even salt it away with a somewhat ineffective running game.
All right. How about Tampa Bay? Like you said, the turnovers should be there for Winston, but at the same time, it doesn't matter that much because in a lot of sites, it's only 1 point lost. You're only docked 1 point for those picks or fumbles. What do you think of guys like Godwin and Evans this week coming off a monster 11 for 198 and 2 touchdown performance? Like, are you all about running this back with, the Godwins and the Evans of the world?
I think you have to consider doing that if you think this game gets up and down. And, as you talked about, Jameis can coexist with, I'm going to have teams that have Seattle defense, and then I'm going to have teams that have, Jameis and his pass catchers, because that's just kind of the way he is. The range of outcomes is gigantic. I assume the Bucs, they're going to have to put up points, of course, and you can't really attack the running back. It's a triple-headed monster that's not really a monster. It's just 3 dudes. So get them out of there. And then you've got Godwin and Evans. It's very difficult. They're both expensive. I'm not sure I can pair up all 3. It's just a lot of salary. So, you're always kind of coin flipping with who has the big game for the Tampa wideouts.
Okay. Yeah. What about you for Tampa, Alex?
Yeah, I think Winston's probably the top quarterback of the week for me. You get a pretty big ownership boost from Wilson. We have Wilson projected for about 20%, Jameis for about 10%. So like that. And this is the game of the week for me. Seattle's defense has been below average, so that kind of boosts Winston a little bit. And I really love the fact that Winston is a great leader. I mean, I'm going off a small sample size with his "Eat the W" speech, but man, that just gets me going.
It was actually the most cringeworthy speech I've ever. Ben, we're similar in that if you watch something that's so embarrassing, you almost feel embarrassed for the person.
Yeah, I mean, I've told you I can't go to comedy clubs because I would actually die if it was bad. Like my anxiety would be through the roof. And Jameis is the epitome. Florida State could have used him yesterday. That's a whole another story for another time. But yeah, it's hard not to like him today, even though he's going to have a couple of plays where you're just like, how do you do that? But sometimes that works for you, especially if it's a pick six that can get him in the right flow and play all that catch up immediately.
So if you went to a comedy club and the person's just bombing out of the gate, what's going through your head?
Well, it would be, you've met May, my significant other. She would be in a world of hurt because she would be the reason I would be there in the first place. And I would be very, very upset that she dragged me there. I would be dying, dude. I cannot handle something like that. I would be just in a very awkward, painful spot.
Did you get up and walk out?
Oh, yeah. 100. Are you kidding me? I would be out the door immediately. I'm not staying around for that.
All right. Fair enough. We got to go to a comedy show sometime. Let's go a guy that's doing like his first set at a big place.
I wouldn't do that for a amount of money that you would be like, there's something wrong with you.
If someone offered you 10 grand, would you do it?
10 grand? If 5 figures was where I was going to set the over under, like if you offer me 5K, I don't want to say it's a snap, no. But it would probably be, that would be awful if I had to endure it for a long time. So sick. Oh,
that's your interpretation of hell.
Yeah. If I was running things, let's just say there wouldn't be bad comedy clubs out there. That's neither here nor there.
Let's talk about Denver and Cleveland. Alex, does Baker Mayfield finally get back on track here? I feel like he does. And it's a horrible, I don't know why. Like, I don't really have anything statistically to back this up. I just have a feeling, which of course isn't going to dictate what I do with my lineups, but game has a 39 total. They're 4-point favorites, but they only have a 21.5 total. It's the second lowest mark, this over under on the slate. I mean, what are you doing with, the Brandon Allen led Broncos and the rapidly collapsing Cleveland Browns?
I think I'm going to trust your feeling here. Tonight's going to be a good night. But I think that Baker, he's really, really cheap, and he's got Odell Beckham and Landry. Landry also, depending on the site, on Fantasy Draft, he's 8,800. That's like a bargain compared to his performance so far this season. Beckham was a little bit more expensive. But Cleveland's favored in the game. They're going up against Brandon Allen for Denver, who probably a pretty poor quarterback, so they'll probably get the ball more in this game, and I like their chances.
Okay. Ben, how about you?
I mean, I say the same thing every week, and then the Browns need this game. Now they're 2-5, and this is as dire as it gets, but Alex is right. Absolutely. Baker is very cheap. What I'm interested to see, Chris Harris has been outstanding. If he shadows Odell, does that set it up for Jarvis? We know Chubb should get a ton of work. And then on the other side, Brandon Allen, that's going to make a bad Denver offense that much worse. So I kind of do have interest in Cleveland in a game that they are favored on the road. Not the best game to load up because it's a very low total, but I'm going to have some plays out of this game.
Okay. Yeah, right now Pro Football Focus does have Chris Harris Jr. shadowing Odell. Odell's the type of guy that can do big things regardless of who's defending him, but it does definitely take a lot of that shine off, especially given how much they've struggled. But, you can't tell me, though, Ben, that it doesn't just feel like one of those spots where they've been so terrible. Pretty much everyone has given up hope, and now they'll come out and have a monster game in Denver. It just feels that way. And you know what? Probably won't happen, but it wouldn't be that big of a surprise if they did, just because there are a lot of skilled players on this offense. I mean, Jarvis Landry's 4,500 on DraftKings.
Yeah, it's very appealing. And as I agree. Odell could torch anyone, but it's very reasonable to say that Baker allocates some of those targets to the, just the lesser,
Right.
easier matchup, and that could
I
really
agree.
impact Jarvis. Lofty, earlier in the year, there was a game, similar kind of thing where you talked about that, and Jarvis went nuts. I could see him having a really nice and a full PPR site, a big day for you.
Okay. Yeah, it was the Baltimore Ravens game.
Yeah, and that was, we talked, Marlon Humphrey is the guy that really, really good on the outside. So I have some interest in the Browns once again.
Okay. When you talk about having interest, how would you kind of gauge that interest, right? Compared to, there's 20 teams on the slate. Where would you put them? Would you put them as high as Sam Darnold?
Well, let's not get crazy. I think what I try to do is I sort my teams into, are they a better stack type of game, or are they a better game to have a type of play? And for me, this is a game where someone like Chubb could be a one-off. Someone like Jarvis Landry could be a one-off. I don't know how many times I'm going to stack up Baker, Chubb, Jarvis, and then run it back with like Sutton. That just seems like a very tough ask in a low scoring environment. So I have interest in the game, but more as single plays than stackability.
Okay. Alex, on the other side, do you have interest in anything for Denver?
I think there's reason to be interested in the running backs because with Brandon Allen and there's a potential to lean on the run game more than when Flacco was quarterback. So I think they make some nice value options. I prefer Freeman at the price because he's a little bit cheaper. It's basically a coin flip for me, which one has a bigger game between Lindsey and Freeman.
All right. Ben, anything for Denver?
No, I mean, I think Cleveland defense is in play. Brandon Allen is someone that I've seen him in college. He went to Arkansas. That's about all I can tell you. I think it's going to be a pretty sluggish day. And with both running backs cannibalizing each other, I think it's pretty prudent to pass on this team.
All right. You want to move on to the last game here, fellas?
Yeah.
Do it.
Well, let's do it then. By the way, got a couple things that you probably want to hear about if you're not a premium subscriber. We got some free content at awesemo.com today. Your NFL rankings, Alex, they are free. We even have free player projections for NBA. You guys getting into NBA action today. Despite it being football Sunday, check out the player projections. They are free. And the lineup builder for NHL will also be free. So check all of that out if you want to get a look behind the curtain before diving in head first. Got the Awesemo NFL rankings for football, player projections for basketball, the lineup builder for NHL. Okay, let's go. Last one here. And remember, coming up, the Inactives report. These guys are going to take you up till around 11:55. And then Josh Engelman and Chris Spags will get you rocking up till 1 p.m. Eastern with Live Before Lock. Ben, Chargers, Green Bay Packers. I initially got a good amount of Phillip Rivers. Not sure how I feel about it, but I do think this should be a game that features a decent amount of scoring. Is it going to be an insanely high scoring game? Probably not, but it should be decent enough. It's got a 49-point over under. Packers are 4-point favorites on the road, so you might see Rivers forced into throwing a lot. But let's start with the Chargers here, and then we can get into, Davante Adams and everybody else for Green Bay.
This is going to be an interesting game. Yeah, I actually like this one. I think, it falls kind of in that nice area. It's not the polarizing guys with the 50-plus totals, but it's also not towards the bottom. And you have two teams that, they have some weapons. Now, Chargers, this is going to be interesting. I'll let Alex handle Mike Williams. I will say that I do like him as well, but the guy I want to talk about is Melvin Gordon. Very reasonable price, has not done much, has looked bad. Found the end zone. Target's not bad, and I have a feeling this could be the game. If he's going to break out, it's right here. Price is depressed across the industry. Packers certainly been easier to gash via the run. I know they've regressed in the secondary, but this is a game at home with the Chargers. I think we could see Melvin Gordon have a big day at a price point that gives him plenty of room to return really solid value.
Okay. Alex, thoughts on that? Follow up.
I think Melvin Gordon's interesting, but I'm more interested in Eckler because he's so exceptional in the passing game. I think that gives him a pretty nice role in the offense. And then we have the potential that with Ken Wisenhunt fired, maybe the new coach the new offensive coordinator tries to silence the critics by giving Austin Eckler a little bit more work. I also like the Chargers stack because this is a game where they should have to pass even more than usual. And Green Bay, a little bit weaker than average defense. Of course, they might get some help from the Zebras, but I'm willing to take some shots here.
Okay. Top plays?
I like the Chargers stack and Eckler.
All right. Ben, top plays?
Similar. I think Charger stack makes a lot of sense, but Melvin Gordon for me is someone that I'm going to be interested. I'm definitely getting over the field, no doubt about it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and flip to the other side of this one, Alex. Right now, we don't have confirmation on Davante Adams, but he has been practicing. God, Aaron Rodgers is probably dying to get Davante Adams back in the lineup. He is expected to play, though, dealing with that toe injury, but there was actually a clip of him in practice jumping over a trainer's head. So apparently he's okay. I actually have some interest in Adams here. I think, the Chargers defense is surely good, and Casey Hayward will probably make life difficult, but we've seen Rodgers force the ball to Davante Adams no matter who's covering him. So I think it's at least worthy of us discussing where he falls for all three of us. And then, of course, the run game. These running backs, get this, since Davante Adams went down, the wide receivers have been targeted 57 times in 4 weeks. The running backs have been targeted 47 times. So really, Rodgers has had zero faith in his running backs, in his wide receivers, and it's shown with how involved he's gotten Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. What are you doing here, Alex, with this Green Bay Packers offense?
This one's simple for me. Beyond Adams, the rotation of wide receivers is just too deep, and they cycle through them. So it's just Adams for me. And then for running backs, just Jones, because he's getting about 2/3 of the work. He's more of a contrarian play for me because there are so many better options at running back, but he might be in a few of my lineups.
Okay, Ben, what about you?
I'm in a similar bucket. It's a game, like I said, I have a lot of interest in the Chargers. So running it back with those top end pass catchers or just players on the Packers in general, I think makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to try to decipher between MVS, Allison, Lazard. Someone's going to get Desmond King. Furthermore, I think that complicates it. But even so, it's just very hard to peg that production. So if Adams is good to go, fire him right back up. And Aaron Jones, certainly the guy you want in the backfield.
Okay. Top plays from this one, would it be Adams? Do you have any, when it comes to like actual priorities, do you have anything from this Packers team that you would consider to be a priority?
Not for me. I mean, naturally, when I'm really heavy on Chargers, I'm going to force in one of the guys on the Packers because they're a good team, and I don't see them by any stretch getting the doors blown off. So it's a really good, easy spot to run it back.
Okay. Favorite play from Green Bay, Alex?
Adams. I think that there aren't that many great wide receivers on the slate today. He'd probably be one of my top ones.
Okay. Top receivers on the slate, you're saying. Okay. Yeah, I like him too. Casey Hayward, Ben, doesn't make it great. But, man, we've seen Aaron Rodgers just say screw it. Like, really, in any situation. He's probably very excited to have Adams back on the field.
Oh, no doubt. And again, it's kind of the opposite of the – to me, these are two teams that – when they get going, they still have plenty of quality top weapons on the offense. I know the Chargers have had a bad year, but there's a lot of guys there that are very capable of putting up big games.
Hey, Ben, you got any good hot takes for us this week? Usually you come with that fire.
Well, I will say public service, college basketball starts on Tuesday. So if you like college basketball, I'm going to be writing some content on the betting side. There's 350 teams out there. And I got some real egregious ones that I am pretty high on, like the North Florida Ospreys. Don't sleep on the Ospreys, but that's neither here nor there. I will say my hot take is not on the slate. The Ravens are knocking off the Patriots tonight. Spread is hovering around 3. At home, they're going to make a statement and give the Patriots their first loss.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that. If you have Lamar Jackson in seasonal leagues, are you playing him?
I am, absolutely. I think his dynamic could cause – they play so much man in New England. I think that actually is a terrible spot for them against a dual threat like him.
I'd be doing it too. How about you, Alex? Do you like Lamar Jackson? Can they knock off the Patriots tonight?
Oh, yeah. I like him a lot. I think that what they're doing running the ball with how effective they've been, that's something the Patriots haven't seen yet, and they could just dominate the game if it works out in their favor.
Before you head out, actually, sorry, don't go anywhere. Stick around because the intermission show, I'd like to call it that, but it is the Inactives Report. We'll take you up to 11:55 and then live before lock from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern. So don't go anywhere. But while you're sitting here, hit us with a thumbs up. Like the video if you do enjoy it. It'll bring you good luck today, and we greatly appreciate all of the support you give us here at Awesemo so we can keep pumping out free content at awesemo.com and at youtube.com/awesemo. Subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. Final thoughts before we're out, Alex. What do you got?
I'll give a hot take here. I think that Seattle will be really overowned, and Russell Wilson will throw less than 30 times, and that will kind of break the slate. Or
does that mean that you might go to? Does that mean you might go to Chris Carson more than most?
Nah, I'm just going for some other spots.
Who's your favorite pivot off of Russell Wilson?
Jameis Winston, of course.
Okay, I love it. And if you're running it back, of course, it would be with Lockett, right? And I think that's one of the things you said. You're not huge on Metcalf, so if you were game stacking this, going with Jameis and his guys and then running it back with Lockett and not having to go with multiple receivers for that team sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about this. We kind of broke the video here, but all right.
Well, that's fine because the show is over. We appreciate you hanging out as always. Stick around. Sam and Eric going to hit you with all of the injury news that'll be rolling in just a minute. All of the inactives, everyone who's already been ruled in or out, all of that with implications coming up next. And then live before lock with Josh Engelman and your boy, Chris Spags. This has been the NFL Deeper Dive. We'll catch you back here next Sunday.
Having some difficulties here. All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
You hear me now?
Yep.
Sweet. Let me plug in headphones here. Hold on.
I don't know what happened there. We're working on it for you guys. Be up. Having some difficulties here. Just 1 second. All right. I think we're back. I think they can hear us. All right. Hey, you know what? That's live. That's live. Live TV, being on the air live. You never know what's going to happen. We appreciate you guys bearing with us. Awesome.
Can you hear me now?
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, great.
Plug in headphones here.
All right. Well, sounds like we're underway. I'm going to be chatting about the inactives for this week. Again, with my man Sam Smith. Sam, can you hear me? Can you say hello to everyone this morning?
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
All right. Looking forward to an action-packed set of games already underway across the pond with Houston taking on Houston taking on Jacksonville. But we're going to be breaking down up-to-the-minute injury news. We know in the world of daily sports, injuries play such a vital role in your decision-making process. And, there's a lot of different things that will impact who you go with, how do you stack your lineups, those sorts of things. So really it's going to be breaking down injuries, how that might impact the teams, their respective decision-making process, whether it's calling plays, what have you. But looking forward to it, Sam.
Yeah, sounds good. Hit me with anything you got.
Yeah. So I guess unless there's anything else you had in mind, we should probably just jump right in, right?
Let's do it.
little late start, so we'll just go ahead and take it from the top. Variety of inactives, some maybe more important than others, but there's a variety of them. As you look at the list, and we'll get to them kind of line by line, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at some of the content on awesemo.com breaking down some of these injury updates, by all means do so. But as you look at some of the injuries across the slate, is there one that kind of stands out to you, Sam, that, hey, building your lineup for today, really need to factor in, and why?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is just Pittsburgh's running back situation is opening up Jalen Samuels to be just mega chalk. His ownership is up like around 60% now. So, which is obviously, I mean, if you're going to look to pivot away from something like that, some other areas I'm looking at is one injury that's kind of under the radar for me is Justin Jones, defensive tackle for the Los Angeles Chargers. Every week I break down O-line, D-line matchups, and I had the Chargers and the Packers matchup there as something I was eyeing with Jones presumably healthy, and that's why I was kind of hammering Aaron Jones this weekend. But Justin Jones is doubtful, and the Packers are the best guard-to-guard run-blocking team, or one of the best in football, and the Chargers one of the worst, and they'll be likely without their best run stopper. So that's kind of where my biggest focus is today. Just basically all Packers running back options, mostly Jones and Jamal Williams, and you can also factor in Aaron Rodgers there as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Always got to factor in Aaron Rodgers when you are, talking about the Packers. There's no denying that. There's a couple of others, for me, I think one that was interesting and I think a lot of folks are paying attention to is recent news that came out this week was T.Y. Hilton for the Indianapolis Colts, their leading receiver, going to miss the next few weeks. I think it's somewhat unclear who that next guy that'll step up might be, whether it's Pascal, Rodgers, what have you, or is it just extra workload for guys like Ebron and Doyle. But definitely some targets to go around the Indianapolis Colts as you look into this week as well.
Yeah, the thing with the Colts is their pass game is so week to week in how much they care about it, and without T.Y. Hilton, I project that they're going to go to the run a lot. But if they continue to throw the ball, I'm looking at Eric Ebron mostly because T.Y. Hilton gets a lot of those end zone targets, and I'm presuming a lot of those will go Ebron's way now. As far as, the rest of the targets, I guess the guys you're looking at are Zach Pascal and Chester Rogers, maybe Paris Campbell. I think he's playing this weekend. He may get a few, but I think Ebron and Doyle are probably going to be the main beneficiaries of Hilton being out, and Marlon Mack in the running backs.
Yeah. And certainly I'm sure game flow always plays a part in that too, right? And things to consider as you're looking into the slate for today.
Yeah.
Well, I think if it makes sense, we got a variety of games. We got the one underway already. We got a variety of games that are going to be kicking off here in the next hour and a half or so, and stick with us on the show here. Another variety of other shows coming after this. We do have Josh and Spags following this stream right after, so do stick around for that. I think maybe it just makes sense to kind of go game by game if that works. And
that works for me.
Some games there are, there's some inactives. There's a lot of games there's actually not too many big ones. So as we kick it off, knowing that game's already underway, maybe start with the Bears Eagles. I don't know if there's anything too much coming out of the Bears Eagles as far as people inactive. I think maybe important to take a look at who might be active as we look at that game. So Deshaun Jackson could be making his return.
Yeah, and the Eagles' offense it's completely different with Deshaun Jackson on the field. They don't really have people who stretch the field without Deshaun Jackson. And you look at, obviously that affects Carson Wentz too, and what he was able to do with Deshaun Jackson on the field, and kind of just the lack of pass catchers he's had without him. I think Carson Wentz now starts to justify his price a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's one point. Tough. You would think a tough matchup against the Bears. I guess it depends which Bears defense shows up.
Right.
But I think the one thing that I found interesting as I was building a few lineups this morning was, one guy that's kind of stepped up in the recent weeks for Philly that's a buy low is Goddard, the tight end. They've been playing a lot of double tights the last few weeks. You've seen that. and sure, they could stick to it. He's been producing pretty well for them, but someone that might see, has been seeing a variety of targets that he, maybe normally wouldn't. Guys like Deshaun returning, perhaps he drops down in value just a shade as well. And then for the Bears, not too many inactives or injuries report on that side of the ball.
No, they're pretty clean. And the Eagles, it sounds like they're going to have both Myles Sanders and Darren Sproles. They'll be without Jason Peters, which is, you do have to figure it in because Andre Dillard has really struggled in his stead in pass protection. But they will be getting both their running backs, it sounds like. So.
Yeah. So, geez, don't we love the Philly backfield? Just when you thought there was clarity there, let's go ahead and sprinkle Darren Sproles right back in and make it a little bit more confusing for you.
Yeah.
Next game on the slate is the Steelers hosting the Colts. I touched on the T.Y. Hilton injury that was reported earlier this week. What else that you look at as far as injuries? James Conner on the Steelers side of the ball, obviously. Seeing a big tick for Jalen Samuels. Other injuries to be of note as you look at that matchup.
I haven't heard. The Colts have like 3 very significant questionables that are going to factor in quite a bit. I haven't heard confirmation on any of them yet, but that's Pierre Desir, the cornerback, Malik Hooker, safety, Justin Houston, defensive end. Justin Houston, pretty good, obviously a good pass rusher, kind of man run support. So I'm assuming Pittsburgh's going to hammer the run as if they can against this Colts defense. So Justin Houston might not factor that much into it. Malik Hooker and Pierre Desir, probably the Colts' 2 best cover guys at their respective positions. So that might factor in a lot, like with how you look at Juju Smith-Schuster or Deontay Johnson, et cetera. And if you're really buying low on Mason Rudolph, you got to consider that as well. I don't see much in way of what the Steelers are working with injury-wise. Ramon Foster is going to be out, but I don't think that's going to factor that much in against the Colts defensive line. Danico Autry is playing for the Colts, but they haven't been great at stopping the run against anybody. I think second worst by PFF. So I'm going to go ahead and ride with the Steelers offensive line, no matter who they have in there.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting game. I think it'll be a tough one. Moving right along to the 1:00 Eastern schedule, I think a game a lot of people have their eye on is the Vikings Chiefs. Of note, Mahomie doesn't look like he's going to be returning. Adam Thielen, what's the latest? What are you hearing on Thielen, Sam?
I've heard that they're going to test out beforehand. Let me just run back to Colts.
Let's double check.
Our friend Alex Baker just sent us a list of the inactives for the game. Pierre Desir is in fact out. Looks like Malik Hooker and Justin Houston are playing. So, Colts will throw probably rookie Rocky Sin at Juju Smith-Schuster a good amount. They stay to their sides, but that's who will probably get the most against him, I would assume. All right, Vikings. Adam Thielen, I heard that they're testing out beforehand, but they're pretty optimistic he's probably going to play.
So, what does that mean? Sometimes like these guys that are to the minute we're unsure if he's going to play. It gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit about throwing that guy in your lineup, right? Like there's just that chance that he gets out, he feels good, adrenaline's flowing pregame, and then first time he has to stretch it out, it's a leg injury like with Thielen. The last thing you want is someone that plays, first quarter and then has to come out.
Yeah, he's not cheap either. He's at 7,800 on DraftKings, and I think a lot of that is having to do with the opponent, Kansas City, not exactly known for their secondary, especially some guy like Thielen who runs 30 to 40% of his snaps out of the slot, where he would mostly see, I believe Kendall Fuller is active. So that on paper, it looks like a mismatch, but again, it's a heavy price you're going to be paying for a guy who is at, best case scenario, he's a little hobbled. Worst case scenario, he's not going to factor in at all because the Vikings run the ball a ton as is, and the Chiefs have the worst run defense in football. So, that the volume might not be there for Thielen when he's healthy. So I'd probably steer away from Thielen, even though we know he's good, at least going to be active. That much is confirmed. We'll see how much he is actually on the field.
Yeah, TBD. So keep that in mind. Again, I did see that high price associated, which, again, if he plays full set of snaps, Thielen's been a monster. But how does that impact someone like Stephon Diggs, who we've seen ball out the last couple of weeks in the absence of Adam Thielen, right? So things to consider. Moving right along, I think the game we talked about again that a lot of people do have their eye on is the Chiefs, Minnesota. This one maybe not so much. The Jets versus Miami, unless you're a fan of Gang Green or a Dolphins fan that just, I don't know, still likes going to the games right now, or you're sort of big Ryan Fitzpatrick fan. Maybe not the sexiest of matchups, but some things of note. You know, we saw the trade, for the Dolphins and getting Kenyon Drake, but some inactives to keep an eye on. What are you looking at as far as the Jets Dolphins game, Sam?
Chris Herndon is active. We know that much. Ryan Khalil, we know, is not going to play their center, and Tremaine Johnson, their starting corner, is also not going to play. You know, with both these teams, it's kind of tough to pick out just who's going to splash because they're both just such bad teams, frankly. With Tremaine Johnson missing, I have some interest in Dolphins receivers a little bit. Preston Williams and Devontae Parker both have their moments. They don't play as much in the slot where Tremaine Johnson plays, but I am intrigued by what Miami can do against the Jets defense, more so than I am what the Jets can do against the Miami defense, which is not something I expected to say this week. But, you know, I think that the weapons that Miami has are at least intriguing offensively.
Yeah, and hey, they move the ball, right? I mean, Fitzpatrick isn't hey, you've been in the league this long, you're doing something right. We've seen him do a lot of things wrong, but they move the ball, and they showed up fairly well against Pittsburgh. Was that Monday night? So next game of note is the Redskins taking on Buffalo. I think, again, a lot of folks probably expect it to be one-sided. Redskins inactives to pay attention to: Chris Thompson out, Vernon Davis we know is out. So Sprinkle will start in place of Davis. Big news report: Dwayne Haskins in place of Case Keenum, who's inactive today. How do you see that shaking out for the Redskins and players associated?
I would avoid anyone associated in passing game, just in general. Part of that's because of Dwayne Haskins. Rookie quarterbacks struggle. That's just how it works. He has shown nothing positive, period, yet. I think that's fair to say. And Buffalo's got a very good defense. It's kind of a tough spot to throw him in first start. So Washington's injured. They're going to be riding Adrian Peterson in the run game with no Chris Thompson. They'll get Darius Geis back eventually, but it's not going to be this week. And their best pass catcher, probably besides McLaurin, is going to be Sprinkle. I think that's not something I'm really going to ride whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo seems like they're fairly healthy. The only guy they're missing of real note is TJ Yeldon. And again, Washington, they're kind of in that same boat as Miami and the Jets, where you fade their defense, and you can kind of work with some Buffalo players in there. Cole Beasley, I'd be looking at. I'd look at John Brown for sure.
Two others I want to mention for Buffalo. One is the wide receiver Duke Williams. He's out.
Yeah.
Other TJ Yeldon. I think, again, people probably expected that, but just to make sure. You can never be too sure before you hit that submit button on your lineups. Moving right along. What game do we have? What game do we have next?
I'll do Carolina, Tennessee. That's up.
Carolina, Tennessee. Why not? Right? Let's go there. I think that's the last one we haven't talked on. Carolina, Tennessee. Cam Newton, bad news on sounds like in his foot injury, doesn't seem to be progressing at the rate at which he or the Carolina Panthers had hoped. It does keep them from, I guess, a potential quarterback controversy, but do see him inactive. As you look at that game, what other injuries of note? Maybe big names, or maybe not such big names. And Delaney Walker is one as well.
Yeah, Delaney Walker's the big one. Saw Jonnu Smith had a nice breakout last week, and he's kind of the main target from that game. I think people are looking at Ryan Tannehill I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was roughly like 55% of his targets went to receivers, like 45 to tight ends, which is a pretty nice split for Jonnu. And you don't really trust Tennessee's receivers that much anyway. Maybe AJ Brown can give you some touchdown upside, but I think in that of the pass catch in that game, you're looking at Jonnu Smith the most. Tennessee, Jack Conklin questionable. I haven't seen if he's going to play yet. Jarrell Casey missing for them is interesting for Carolina because Jarrell Casey, pretty stout defensive tackle, and Carolina loves to give the ball to Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, I don't think you're ever going to totally fade Christian McCaffrey, but I think he's up over $10,000. So that's obviously got to factor in. But with Jarrell Casey missing, that's going to help out McCaffrey's stock quite a bit.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I mean, gosh, that guy's just a monster, right? It's no more of a sure thing, I think, than Christian McCaffrey this year.
Another thing to note, Mario Addison's not playing for a personal reason, defensive end for Carolina. So that could obviously help with what Tennessee's going to do in the passing game. Pretty good run defender as well.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Sam. I think one of the things that I want to point out to our viewers, it's not just, the main names, right? The people that are going to be showing up on your list of potential players you're throwing in a respective lineup. It's the injuries like a defensive end or the left tackle or things like that of note that really make a difference. Starting corners being out, those sorts of things. That's the type of information we want to try to provide to you on this show. So again, not just the main names that I think most people are aware of or paying attention to.
And I can confirm Jack Conklin is going to play for Tennessee. They're starting right tackle.
There you go. What other show is telling you about the Tennessee Titans tackle? None.
That's what I'm here for.
That's right, baby. All right, I think that wraps up the 1 o'clock slate. Moving right along to the 4 o'clock Eastern. You know what? It's so hard for me to say that. I got to be honest. I'm in Chicago. Like this.
Yeah, same.
Plus daylight savings. Like I don't even know what time it is.
I didn't even notice the Michael Jordan poster behind your head. I respect.
Yeah, how about that? You know what? Yeah, that's pretty proud of that. I share a birthday with Michael. That's about
nice.
We share a birthday. We don't share pretty much anything else other than a city that he lived for a period of time. Yeah. Anyways, moving right along to the 4 o'clock slate. I'll keep track of my times as we keep it going. Lions Raiders. A game which I think a lot of people expect some points to be scored, and probably a game where folks are going to be playing a variety of players. I think a lot of people are probably high on the Lions pass attack in that game. The running back situation, a bit tough to untangle in Detroit. As you look at kind of some of the others, what stands out to you as far as Lions-Raiders game goes?
So the Lions, we know that they're pretty much going to bat with Ty Johnson and J.D. McKissick. They did bring up Paul Perkins to replace Trey Carson. So we'll see how committee they go with that running back room. Ty Johnson is listed as first on the depth chart. So we'll see there. They will be without their guard, Graham Glasgow, right guard. They'll be without Mike Daniels, defensive tackle. They haven't posted inactives yet, but Darius Slay is questionable. They did trade Diggs, there's safety. So they're kind of selling off, which is interesting. They're also going to be Ashawn Robinson, Damon Harrison, their two big run-stopping tackles are questionable. They haven't posted whether or not they're going to play yet, but obviously I keep an eye on that when looking at Josh Jacobs, for example.
Yeah, I think that those are probably the most important things. Again, this is a game that, as I was looking at some of the comments flying through on our YouTube chat, I think a lot of people are paying attention to this game. Moving right along. Next game, you know what? How about Sam? I've been picking the games. What is there one as you look at these 4 o'clock games? What 4 o'clock game do you think? Hey, you know what? We got to pay attention to these. I know some injuries maybe aren't confirmed just yet. We'll try to get you the questionables. We'll get you the inactives where we can. Packers, Chargers, Browns, Broncos. What injury stands out to you for the kind of the rest of those afternoon games?
Well, I mentioned Packers, Chargers, so I'll skip that for now. Let me look at Seahawks here real quick. Sorry. We know that they did just get Josh Gordon. He is not going to play. So he is out.
Not quite ready to pick up that system. in Seattle, they got a lot of options at the wide receiver position. I mean,
They do.
Tyler Lockett seems to be the favorite, but he didn't see a huge lion's share of the targets. Russell Wilson definitely spreads the ball around.
DK Metcalf gets the majority of their end zone targets too.
Yeah.
As you saw last week, 13 yards, 2 touchdowns. He paid off. If you've invested him, he paid it off with catching the ball like 3 times. So that's always in play with him. They're a team that can kind of just, once Josh Gordon comes in, they're just going to be like, just send all their receivers downfield. You're not going to be able to stop us more than 6 out of 10 times.
You think Gordon makes that big of a difference? Huh?
I don't know. It's just in my head, I've pictured just Russell Wilson throwing deep balls to 3 of the better deep ball receivers in football in theory, and it's making me need a towel, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, let's stay on that game then. We were talking about Metcalf. We're talking about some of these players. I think there is one injury, maybe not like jumping off the board to you, but one of the injuries that was mentioned in the article on awesome.com as far as injury reports and some of the buy lows that I think people are paying attention to is O.J. Howard out again for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a game that, again, I think people do expect some points to be scored. Seems like Tampa Bay's always like in hurry-up mode late in the game, like airing it out.
Yeah.
And while he didn't have a huge return last week, Cameron Brate is someone I think that a lot of people are probably keeping their eye on as to look at that game and inactives with Howard out. Brate is definitely the lead man as far as tight end position goes for Tampa Bay. And while, Evans and Godwin certainly have gobbled up their fair share of receptions and yards and touchdowns and everything, I think Brate's one of those, again, buy low, but potential upside, potential red zone targets. We've seen him target him in the red zone there. So I think that's one that, as I look at that game, it does kind of stand out.
Yeah. I mean, his volume was there as far as targets last week, 6 targets. And when you're, like you said, in offense with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who are 2 of the higher volume receivers in football, that's nothing to sneeze at. Like you said, I think Seattle's a much better team than Tampa. And this game has some shootout potential because of Tampa's run defense, but I think you're going to see Jameis throwing the ball, 40 plus times, which is not uncommon for him. And if, with that volume, you got to factor in Brate. Looking at for his price here. There it is down there. He's at, 3,100. That's very low. So it's certainly worth a flyer, if nothing else, given Tampa Bay's volume.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one other injury of note, I guess someone returning. Again, we want to give you some of those off under the radar injuries or people returning. The Bucs get a boost to their offensive line this week. Starting right guard Alex Kappa returning, broke his arm earlier in the year and is back, of course. So, good news for him. Good news for that Tampa Bay offensive line. I'm sure Jameis Winston is going to be happy about that. But not only him, the Tampa Bay running backs. And while I don't think anybody is ever particularly high on those guys, hey, you know what? I just wanted to share the information. We want to make you aware. All right? I'm not telling you.
I'm always in favor of offensive line news.
Yeah. Again, it's important. It's
the backup high school center. I always respect that hustle.
The backup high school center. You know what? It's probably someone that's my boss right now. Moving right along. The Cleveland, the Brownies. Are they going to win a game? Are they going to win this game this week? I got to be honest. I wasn't on the bandwagon early in the year. Something about Baker Mayfield, I respect that he's not afraid to say how he feels. Man, you got to prove it a little bit in this league, right? So they got a favorable matchup, you would hope, against the Denver Broncos, but it's in Denver, and a tough matchup, for a good defense. They're not great, but a good defense. Offense obviously struggling for Denver. But as you look at that matchup, what name stands out to you as far as injuries?
I mean, the big one Denver has 3, I think, fairly significant injuries to deal with. Joe Flacco, hasn't been good, but would you rather have Joe Flacco or Brandon Allen starting for your team?
There you go.
That's something you have to figure when you're looking at, Cortland Sutton, for example. Another pass catcher, Jeff Howerman's not going to play. That means tight end targets are going to Noah Fant, for better or for worse. And he's not been particularly impressive despite being first round. He's super athletic. And because he's super athletic and he's getting end zone targets, you kind of have to consider him. But he also drops passes. He's pretty hit or miss on every single play. So then the other injury for the Broncos is right tackle Juwan James, who's been pretty good this year. I think he'd probably be matched if he had played. He's a right tackle, so he'd be with Olivier Vernon, which now Olivier Vernon's probably got a backup to work with, and you like that matchup if you're Cleveland. So yeah, so those are the three I'm mainly looking at this game. The Browns look fairly healthy. I did have the Browns as my contrarian stack for the week just because I'm thinking, Baker Mayfield has 12 picks this year, and I think 7 of them are not on quote turnover worthy throws. So I'm kind of working that regression a little bit.
Mhm.
That said, Denver's defense is pretty good, and it's in Denver, as you said. So that could be a foolhardy move on my part. I'm just playing the history with Mayfield and Odell.
Yeah, and you know what? Hey, while we probably don't love Denver's offense in this, Cleveland is without one of their better defenders in Demarius Randall.
Yeah, that's true.
At cornerback. So, hey, you never know.
That could be a spot where you look at Noah Fant a little bit, running up the seam.
That's right. Yeah, it's things to consider. And maybe if you're in one of those larger, big contests, a lot of you just got to change it up, right?
Yeah, Noah Fant 3,000 on DraftKings. So
daily in fantasy rewards the bold, right?
Yep.
So
exactly.
Sometimes you got to get out there with it. Moving right along, I think we got one more 4:00 game to get to cover.
Yeah, Packers-Chargers.
Packers-Chargers. Game of the week. You know what? Gosh, it pains me every single year to see Green Bay with Rodgers. Like, when is he going to retire? And this is going to be an interesting game. Chargers coming off I guess depending on what side you're on, it was a good win for them. Tough loss for the Bears last week. Green Bay continues to roll. They seem to really be clicking and figuring it out. One injury to note on that side of the game today is Davante Adams. What's the latest we're hearing on Davante?
He's questionable. I haven't heard which direction it's leaning, but they haven't posted inactives. From what I can gather, it seems like they're sort of leaning that he'll play, but if he doesn't, it's always hard to pick with these Green Bay receivers, like who's going to be here it is. Looks like, nope, I don't know if I trust that report. Anyway, it sounds like he's going to play. But even if he doesn't, it's kind of hard to pick which Green Bay receiver is going to be the main beneficiary of that. Generally, it's Valdez-Scantling, but it's John Allison has that big play potential. One thing that could Green Bay did just activate their 4th-string tight end, Jay Sternberger, rookie. So we'll see if that factors in at all. He's pretty athletic, but again, he's been on IR all season, so that's kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah, listen, we don't expect the 4th-string tight end to be a game changer, right? But hey, as Sam mentioned there, he is one of those high athleticism, big tight ends, red zone target. He's
a 3rd-round pick, I believe. So he's not a nobody.
That's right. Well, you haven't heard of him maybe yet this year. You may hear of him today. You never know. We'll see what Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers has in mind for him in a matchup that I think it'll be interesting. Chargers, they haven't quite lived up to potential this year.
Yeah, their injuries are they're the most snake bit franchise from that perspective that I've ever seen. Every year, they lost arguably their best player, Derwin James, at the beginning of the year. Looking at their injury report, they have 4 defensive tackles who are either questionable or worse, including, like I mentioned, Justin Jones. So that's why I'm very high on Aaron Jones this week. And basically anyone behind center for the Packers, running back, quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, Green Bay's just ran the ball down people's throats, and not just Aaron Jones, because the defensive tackles were out, looks to be good. Jamal Williams there too. I mean, he's for a number 2 running back, he's been pretty consistent. Not just in the run game, but certainly in the passing game as of late. Both Green Bay receivers, really, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, they're for sure a committee. Jones gets the edge in touches most weeks. That's why I'm favoring him. And he did just have that huge receiving week, but Jamal Williams also caught a touchdown last week. So they're both always in play to some degree. I'm favoring Jones this week, but in large scale contests, Jamal Williams could pay off big as well.
Yeah. We will see where it goes. So I think that's all of the games for the afternoon slates. It'll be an exciting matchup tonight. Tune back in. I'll be hosting with my man Emac for the Live Before Lock. So first of all, it'll be Live Before Lock right after this show, leading up until the 1 o'clock Eastern start. And then Live Before Lock this evening with myself hosting with Emac, breaking down an exciting matchup, New England and Baltimore. Really excited to watch that one tonight. Definitely not going to be falling asleep at halftime. Sometimes these Sunday night late games, I think, and it can happen for folks. Again, stay with us here on Awesemo. We got some more content coming to you guys leading until lock. Sam, what's on your mind? Anything else that you want to make sure we mention? Anything else that's come in over the show that you want to share with the viewers before we wrap up for this week?
Going back to the Chiefs-Vikings, there's an official Inactives tweet here. Frank Clark is out for them. Kendall Fuller, who I thought would be active, is not active, so that could help Adam Thielen's case there. They're also without Eric Fisher, which I failed to mention, but I didn't know that. So that's another thing to consider. Pat Mahomes officially out as well. I don't think we mentioned that.
Cool. All right. Well, guys, I think that wraps us up for this week. Thanks for tuning in. You can catch us again back next week, breaking down injuries, the impacts. You know what? I feel like I'm going to be a doctor by the time we're done with breaking down injuries this season. It's one of the things that I always found interesting about fantasy sports is how much you become in tune with just like injuries and the longevity of how it might impact people.
Start following orthopedic surgeons on Twitter.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff. But hey, this is the world we live in. Get used to it. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Stay tuned for Live Before Locks. I'll catch you guys this evening. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Live before lock for the NFL Week 9. A lot of things to hit on over the course of the next hour. I'm Chris Spags, joined as always by my pal, the Chubster, Josh Engelman. How are you doing, Josh?
Pretty good. A hectic day today, running this three-way stream for the first time ever, but we largely went off without a hitch. So I'll take what I can get. It's still running and it's noon, so that'll work.
Yeah, and shout out to Eric and Sam, those guys doing their first show today. Obviously, Lofty, Alex, and Ben doing a great job always to start the morning off here of all of our football content. But Eric and Sam, give them some love. They're going to be getting their feelers going for the next few weeks. But those guys, very charming, nice boys. So I'm rooting for them. I enjoyed listening to their show before us. But we are here now, and we are powered, as always, by the good graces of rake-free DFS at fantasydraft.com. So head over there right now. You still have some time to get in there for the Hooters main event, their big tournament. And as always is the case at fantasydraft.com, all of the contest fees are paid out to the winners. Let's go over to fantasydraft.com right now and use that promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for your free 7-day trial. And Josh, I'm sure as always, because you are a man who's very smart about his bankroll, smart about the world of rake, I'm sure you're playing at Fantasy Draft today.
I am indeed. I would do nothing less. This is my Sunday routine now. I play on Fantasy Draft. I am playing on FanDuel as well because I had everything set up and was ready to go. So Fantasy Draft and FanDuel are my two today, but Fantasy Draft in particular is the spot that I play the most. And that's essentially because I don't have to pay rake. It's really hard to pass up.
Yeah, look, paying rake is a thing. It's a necessary evil on a lot of the sites. I enjoy playing on all the sites that have all the rake contests as well, but you're just a smarter person if you are playing on the sites that are going to give you an advantage in terms of not paying rake. Let's go check that out right now at fantasydraft.com. And also, last plug here, go to awesemo.com/join. Use the promo code live before lock. If you want half off your first month of Awesemo Plus, all the player projections right from Alex Awesemo Baker himself, as well as the ownership projections. It's all at your fingertips if you go to awesemo.com/join. We have packages as low as $3.95 a week on there as well. So if you're just a casual player just trying to get the grade version of everything, you can do that over at awesemo.com/join. All right, let me just make sure that I got the most recent ownership. I believe I do. But I mean, look, there's one play we need to hit on first. We usually go quarterbacks, but I just want to make sure that we touch on, ownership came out 1 minute ago. So hot off the presses here, the virtual presses.
No, I don't really like Dwayne Haskins today.
Of course, my favorite quarterback, Dwayne Haskins, who I busted out the stats about him so many times, including on the contrary yesterday. And I'll do it today in a little bit. But
hold on, are you serious?
No, he's terrible. Like, the thing is that he's really, really bad.
Oh, okay. I thought you were like legitimately advocating for Dwayne Haskins in the spot. No, and I was just about to be like, I got nothing, man.
No, I am playing roughly 60% Buffalo Bills defense today because of how bad Dwayne Haskins is. But
that's reasonable.
But I do have actually a little bit of Haskins just because, like, if that goes poorly, then I want to be able to get some leverage. But no, Haskins is very, very bad. And, let's just do it right now because these stats are fun.
Okay.
I enjoy reading bad stats. One of my favorite things in baseball. Not as many times in NFL where you get stats that are so egregiously bad, but on the year, Dwayne Haskins, a 55% completion rate, throwing 6.4 yards per attempt, which actually is not a bad number relative to everything else. He has thrown no touchdowns. He has an 18% interception rate, a 15% sack rate, and then also it gets even better because the Buffalo Bills defense, guys, an actually good defense. Dwayne Haskins, when he gets pressured, he's up to a 40% sack rate, a 20% interception rate, 25% accuracy, a 5 QB rating, and 2.1 yards per pass. So these are historically bad numbers that are probably due for positive regression. But so how much Dwayne Haskins do you want now that I said that?
I was going to get 0 before that. I don't know if it's possible to get less than 0 of someone in a week, but if there ever was a possibility to do that, it's him. It's sure him.
It's insane. I mean, the one thing I will give him a credit for when he came into the game last week, he did target McLaurin. There was a pass that he threw that ended up as a pick where McLaurin actually bounced off his chest. McLaurin should have caught it. So, it's probably a little bit of bad luck for Haskins as well. But I mean, like a 40% sack rate, like he just has no pocket awareness right now. As somebody mentioned, I think it was either Jeff or Alex, I'm on the contrary yesterday, not having Jay Gruden in there is going to be an issue as well because there's no QB coach. It's Bill Callahan, who's just a guy who wants to run the ball, wants to play old school football, not a QB whisperer. So it's hard to imagine there. Maybe the week of first team reps makes him a little bit less terrible, but that to me is the reason why I'm playing a lot of Bills, because he might be a historically bad quarterback as a rookie.
That's an understatement. I think he's super, super terrible.
Yeah,
they are not a very good part of the DC sports teams as of right now.
No, they are probably not going to have the renaissance that the Capitals and the Nats have had, I would think.
Not until Snyder sells the team.
No, I mean, but the thing is too, like, even with incompetent ownership, I'm sure they could luck their way into being better. Like, it wouldn't shock me if they had one good year like next year. Because
tell that to the Knicks.
Yeah, all right, fair point. So the Knicks at least like got guys this year. They got guys who have some ability. Like
they have not been good in 30 years.
Almost 30. They were good in 94 when I was a little kid in New York. I was there.
We're getting dangerously close. Yeah. Incompetent ownership is really difficult to overcome.
It is. All right. Well, let's talk more about the quarterbacks who are actually good this week. I was going to talk about Jalen Samuels, but look, Jalen Samuels is going to be very highly owned. I guess we could shit on him fast as people know, because he is, to me, one of the building blocks that you have. I'm playing a lot of him. I see no reason not to play a lot of him. I don't see anybody pushing him for time. I think he's a talented player. He's also a good PPR play on DraftKings and all the sites that have that full point PPR. So I'm very in on Samuels. So before we talk quarterbacks, where are you shaking out with Jalen Samuels?
He'll be in like the large majority of my lineups, 90% as of right now.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I am too. I just don't see why. He's like Tice the other day that we talked about on the NBA live before lock, where the price point is too good. The opportunity is too good. Like I'm there for it. Yeah.
Sometimes it's that easy. Look, he could die, but it's just, you don't always get like on, you could speak to the DraftKings pricing on FanDuel. You don't really get guys with a 15.7 fantasy point projection for 5K. It's a 3.1 value metric. Next closest guy is Le'Veon Bell at 2.5. This is in Alex's projections. Everybody else is at like 2.1 or lower. So it's a completely different opportunity. Worst case scenario is you're holding hands with everybody. Best case scenario is it's your only chance to win.
Yep. Oh, also EMAC points out, don't forget about the world champion Washington Mystics. So my apologies for leaving out the WNBA and Washington Sports Renaissance.
There you go.
A shout out our old pal. But yeah, Jalen Samuels, I mean, look, I think too, with the pricing that some of these guys have, like I love Kenny Golladay. He's priced up quite a bit. I think he's in a good spot at low ownership. The other running backs, if you're trying to get to Dalvin Cook, if you're trying to get to Christian McCaffrey, Samuels just opens up a lot there. I have a ton of Darren Waller. He's also priced up. I want to be able to afford him. So it's me. He's a necessary evil on the slate. And 4K on DraftKings for Samuels. Like, I just don't see how he doesn't get you, 15-ish points. I mean, I think probably upwards of 20 would be my hope. And that's obviously just me saying that. That's not anything projection wise, though. Alex does have him projected really well relative as a value play. But I really like the spot for him, and I don't see how you get away from him this week.
You and I are on the same page.
All right, so we got that. Mark Smith in the chat. Jalen Samuels is coming back too soon from meniscus surgery. That's the only thing holding me back from matching the field. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, he's 50% owned. If you want to play it safe and come in at 30, just try to differentiate, go to guys in the different price tiers like Josh Jacobs. You want to go up to Melvin Gordon. I get all that stuff, but playing DFS the way that I think you're supposed to play is you take the value that's like this, that has just all the runway in the world. No Betty Snell in there. Like it's too much opportunity for one dude.
In my player pool right now, he's basically projected for the same amount of points relative to the salary of the two guys that are closest to him in salary, Ty Johnson and Jamal Williams. Like it's basically the same aggregate projection per dollar, only you get it in one guy instead of two at 10.9. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to do this. I can't get away from it.
Yeah. All right. So we're there. Look, I mean, it's funny how much it's weird because I feel like our thing has always been that we generally disagree a lot. And I feel like on all the shows lately, we've been really like, yep, all right, we're just making the same plays. At least it's Corbett.
You and I are besties in the DFS space again.
We are. Makes me feel good. Makes me feel like I've grown as a player and and a man as well, I'm sure. But definitely not as a man. Let's talk about the QBs. Chalk QB of the week looks to be Russell Wilson. One of the highest priced QBs on the slate, actually might be the highest priced. Depending on your sites, in a good spot going against a Tampa Bay team who is a bit of a funnel defense in terms of really things going away from the run. They're giving up a not so nice 69 rushing yards per game. Could be a tough spot for Chris Carson. Could mean that Wilson has to throw a little bit more. I know Alex is a bit down on him. I ended up with less Wilson than I thought I would just because the price point is tough. There's some other cheaper guys I like, including going down a little bit to Matt Stafford. But tell me where you're shaking out with Russ.
He's my fourth most owned quarterback. I'm under the field, but I think he's necessary. And a lot of it, if you were a premium subscriber to awesemo.com, you could take a look at the top stacks tool, but I'll give a little peek behind the curtain just in speech. Again, I'm speaking from FanDuel perspective here, but it's pretty universal, at least from a quarterback perspective. He has the third highest odds of being in the top stack, but he's pulling in the highest ownership. So he has the biggest gap between ownership and how likely he is to be in the top stack. So I want to have a share of him because he's likely to be good, but I don't think that's my best route to winning a GPP. So I am under the field. I'm over on a few other guys.
All right. Yeah, I think that's where I'm shaking out with it too. I like Russ. I certainly know the ability. Even if he doesn't pass a lot, I mean, we always talk about the lack of passing volume that he gets because it is a run heavy team, but you are getting a matchup here where the run may be a little bit less valuable. And also just, he's been so efficient where I don't really care. Going against Tampa Bay defense is really not good defending the pass. So I'm with Wilson as a play. I think there's still value for his receivers, but I agree with you. I think there are some other ways to go. One guy whose ownership has really surged upwards, which I'm not on, but his Vegas totals on the way up. I totally get the logic. And I talked about him, one of his targets being one of my go-to guys. Derek Carr, now going to be the number 2 owned guy on DraftKings, not too far behind elsewhere. His price works on a lot of the sites. Where'd you end up with Derek Carr?
I have more than I would probably like. I mean, it's roughly 10%, so it's not as if it's going crazy. He's probably the second most over-owned guy per FanDuel, significantly lower chance of being the top stack, slightly less ownership than Russ as well, but still high enough. Is another person where I'm under the field. I have some exposure, but they're not the guys that I'm going to with volume.
Okay. Yeah, I think that seems fair. He's not a guy I really felt like. I prefer the quarterback on the other side. I think the price was certainly more appealing for Derek Carr. Yeah. I just don't see him as a high upside play. I mean, this is a team who likes to bleed the clock out. I just don't know that he gets there, but he does have Terrell Williams and Darren Waller, who are 2 easy stack targets. Also, Josh Jacobs, again, should benefit, gets a lot of good goal line work for him. I think that's a spot where I like that offense, but Carr is not a piece that I landed on as much as the field seems to be.
I think that's reasonable.
How about Matt Stafford?
Matt Stafford. Basically, so this is essentially the exact same story as Derek Carr. Okay. Same ownership. If I look back at top stacks right now, similar ownership similar public ownership and similar my ownership going to Stafford and Carr. Detroit, slightly higher top stack probability. So I do get a hair more of Stafford. But again, these are 2 guys where I'm not trying to fly over the field because I think they're going a little bit overrepresented in terms of ownership.
So I'm a little more the other way where I do think Stafford's a really strong play today. The Vegas total starting to creep up finally, which I mentioned on the contrary yesterday, gave me a little bit of pause that it was kind of stuck at 24 all week. Up to 24.5 this morning implied points for Detroit. Oakland's totals also got up a bit to 27. I feel like this game is kind of treading in the direction that I want to see because these are 2 defenses that really aren't that good. Oakland's defense does a good job, mostly limiting production because they do a good job squeezing the out of the ball on the other side. Opponents only running 62 plays per game against Oakland, which is on the lower end. Whereas against Detroit, Detroit's allowing almost 70 plays per game. Detroit is. And also Oakland should benefit from that pace. One would think that Detroit could benefit a bit as well. So I don't know. I think it's a nice game script for Stafford, and I really don't see how Oakland stops both Galladay and Jones. And I think paying for both those guys is going to be a move that a lot of people don't make.
Let's see how much I have of those goons. Where's Galladay hiding? Galladay and Jones. Okay, so then I'm making a very obvious stand here. I am like half the field on Galladay and Jones. So go, not the Lions.
It hurts that we're now on the other side here because I really think these guys are like strong plays. I'll give the reasons why. So
yeah, hit me.
Oakland's D giving up 68% completion rate and 8% passing TD rate, so that when they are giving up completions, they're going deep. Also, Matthew Stafford throws the ball deep 7 times a game, 7 targets of 20 plus yards a game. The majority of those go into Galladay and Jones. You have Marvin Hall, who can, is a bit of a risk to take something off the table, but DVOA wise as well, wide receiver 1 boost, according to Football Outsiders, going 33% boost. So that'll be going for Kenny Galladay, 21% boost to wide receiver 2s, or actually, no, 23%, my bad. So that would be going to Marvin Jones. Like, to me, it just seems like a perfect situation all around for Detroit. Stafford on the road, a bit of a risk. I know people afraid of playing Stafford outside of the dome. I just don't think Oakland's defense has anything at all to stop these guys. And I think also Detroit's defense is bad enough where I just find it hard to believe that Oakland doesn't score a bunch too.
I get it. Look, I'm not happy to have less there because on paper, like on paper, the Lions and that stack look great, but if the quarterback's getting the ownership and both of the wide receivers are getting that ownership, it's just really naturally easy for me to come in at a lower number and flip that to someone that's not getting as much ownership.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, and I think it was more appealing yesterday, the ownership run that we had going on the site yesterday, and they do get more accurate as the week goes on. But now these guys are up to 13% for both Stafford and Galladay. I think yesterday we had them under 5. And maybe that's just the on the contrary effect. You could say the on the contrary bump that I gave these guys.
Maybe.
But yeah, at 13%, I'm certainly well above it. I think these guys have really high ceilings in this spot, and they are one of my favorite stacks. And this game stack to me looks like one of the best to me of the week, but we'll find out. And
it's hard for me to disagree. It's mostly just an ownership play and has very little to do with like how I feel about those guys individually, which is, it's two separate questions as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Let's keep talking QBs and go through how obviously we can talk more about that game a little bit later on. But Jameis Winston coming in right now as one of the top owned QBs. I am not there. I just don't like chalk Jameis Winston. I get the logic. I know Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are going to be highly owned. I get it. The game script, people seem to be thinking this is going to be a high scoring matchup going back and forth. I just do not like being on chalk Jameis. I have some Seattle defense. I'm not here. I'm not here on Jameis at all. How are you feeling about Jameis?
No Jameis at all for you?
None. I might have one lineup with Jameis, but that's about it.
So basically, Russ, like Russell Wilson, Stafford, Carr, and Winston are the 4 guys I have at like the bottom of my QB tier. So again, they basically all have the same exposure for me and in the public. He's just not a guy that I can avoid comfortably. I don't know what it is, but it's something about, well, I guess a lot of it has to do with Alex's projections as well. But I get really nervous when I don't have Winston, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans, because I just feel like he's going to throw the ball 6 million times, and one of those 2 idiots is going to have 3 touchdowns. And it's usually the guy that I have less of. I think that's happened like whatever day Godwin went crazy, I had more Evans. Whatever day Evans went crazy, I had more Godwin. I don't get these guys right at all. Right. I don't get these guys right at all. I have more Godwin today, so fire up your Mike Evans shares, but I do have a bunch of both.
Yeah, I forgot actually, because that was one of your bolder calls that you were heavy on Jameis last week, and then he didn't quite have a great day, but obviously Evans went completely bananas.
Yeah. Winston ended up as a perfectly acceptable quarterback to have. He was in like the low 20s or something. He didn't die out there, but Evans was very much the guy. Chris Godwin, slightly less so.
All right, so here's one dude who I have this week who is really low down the ownership, and I'm kind of surprised he didn't get a jump. And I'm saying I'm not going to play Sam Darnold, or I'm not going to play Winston. It's because it's Sam Darnold. So that's why Sam Darnold at the same price point basically as Winston on DK. I greatly prefer Sam Darnold. I think this is the spot where he gets back on track. I hate Adam Gase as a coach. I hate him as an offensive coordinator. I think he's a really weird looking guy. A lot of things against him.
Apparently you hate him as a person too.
I do hate him as a person. I don't think he's a good dude. He's kind of a manipulator behind the scenes. So there's really nothing about Adam Gase I enjoy, but I think this is a really good get well spot for a Jets team who does have weapons. Robbie Anderson is one of my favorite really low owned wide receiver plays of the week. The Jets stack. Le'Veon Bell's ownership has come down a bit as well. I just think this game is going to break well for the Jets, and I find it hard to believe they don't have some production here. Like Mason Rudolph to me is such a shitty quarterback, and he looked like, he played terribly on Monday night, and he had like 25 fantasy points. Like that's what Miami's defense is. So I'm on Sam Darnold a lot. He is my pivot to Jameis. Where are you with Sammy Sunshine?
I have like 3 or 4 shares. That's about it. He's not a part of it. We still haven't talked about the three guys I have the most. Essentially half of my QB exposure.
Wow. Okay. So just, I guess, reveal them then, because I'm surprised we have not hit on them yet. Fitzpatrick, Rodgers?
All right. So number 1, Phillip Rivers.
Okay.
4th highest odds of being in the top stack. Half as much QB ownership as their top stack odds. So Phillip Rivers is coming in numero 1 for me. Number 2, you did mention Aaron Rodgers. A little bit overvalued per the top stack tool for Rodgers. He just happens to be the guy that's coming out the most. I think that a little bit has to do with the fact, and it's something that I might try to adjust in the next 38 minutes. I think that's having a lot to do with Jalen Samuels, because Aaron Rodgers is expensive. He then becomes, and Davante Adams isn't exactly cheap either. They become easier to get to because Jalen Samuels costs so little. So I think that is a function of why I'm getting to more Aaron Rodgers, which makes me a little uncomfortable. He's kind of like the optimizer play, which is not normally where I want to be in this scenario. So something I'm going to take a look at. It's not like I'm going to get away from him just because the odds are so high. And then the third one, I feel like you'll like this a little bit. It's not Josh Allen, just to put that out there. Also, 3 different guys named Allen quarterbacking.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, so here's the thing. I'm playing a little bit of Brandon Allen too. And I think I like guys named Allen at quarterback.
Evidently.
Like, I think they all have decent weeks. Like, I like Brandon Allen, I think is actually kind of an interesting play. Like, I don't think he's a good quarterback. I did watch a little bit of film from him, like, just because I wanted to get a read on his actual ability. And it's like, you know, if he looked really good, I would have probably gotten a little crazy on him, like 10% crazy, not stupid crazy. It wouldn't shock me if Denver throws more just to spite Joe Flacco. Like, because he came out to the media and was like, oh, they're too conservative. So it would be funny if they bring in a crappy backup who then goes nuts with like Sutton and Noah Fant. So I find it as an intriguing play at like, you know, at like this much, like that little. But tell me who your third is.
Do you think that you'll go crazy if someone named Allen would ever be in the NFL?
I would play him every week. There's no question about it.
Does it have to be spelled Allen? Because I'm picturing him being like Alan.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, he's like a British prospect we brought over.
Anyway,
Allen. Hello. I'm playing
the third guy that I have the most of, who's getting essentially 0 ownership, and in the top stack stool has the second highest odds of being the top stack. I've got myself some Matt Moore.
Okay, I do like that play quite a bit. Also,
do you? Because it apparently killed you.
No, like I'm having a tough coughing day. I was up too late, and then the timing today of the extra hour of sleep actually threw me off worse.
Oh, I needed that hour so bad. Shouts to the UFC pay-per-view last night.
So I love Matt Moore. And I think Matt Moore with Sammy Watkins is one of my favorite plays. And so here's what I think Minnesota's going to try to do defensively. And I know this is not something that's not a data thing. This is me just kind of observing and trying to read the tea leaves as best I can. So you know what they did when they played Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones? Was what they basically did was they put 2 guys on Golladay. They had one guy covering him. They had another guy over the top, so Golladay couldn't get going. I think Tyreek Hill's a better deep ball receiver. I think it might be harder to do that, but I think that's what they're going to try to do. And I think that opens up Watkins. And I think then if you go with Moore and Watkins and maybe like Demarcus Robinson, I think is another low-owned guy, so kind of give you the 2-man. I think those guys can have a big day and nobody's on that stack.
I don't disagree. It's one of my favorite things that I have going right now. I'd like to get a little bit more Matt Moore than I have right now. You said something right there and I forgot what it was.
It was genius. Sammy Watkins, Demarcus Robinson.
No, it had nothing to do with DFS.
Oh, dying inside.
I lost it.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's fine. I'm sure it was a great point. It'll come back to you. But, you know, Matt Moore to me, I think at his price point under 5K on DraftKings, I am there quite a bit. I think he's a very strong play today. I think they're going to throw a little more. Minnesota has shown they can give up production again. That big day versus Detroit was one example. But Matt Moore was pretty decent last week, I think, going against the Green Bay defense, who was actually pretty solid. So, yeah, I don't mind him at all. And I think the price really works.
Okay. I remember what it was, and it had nothing to do with anything that you said. I was just simply going back to look at my player pool on FanDuel to make sure that I wasn't missing anything in Alex's most recent update.
Oh, okay. Alan Marga in the YouTube chat saying, go Allen. Yeah, I agree. Look, when Allen comes up as a prospect, at least create him in Madden. Make him a 99 rated QB. That would be fun.
Shouts to Allen.
Shout out Allen. All right, guys, hit that like button. We are going to go over some of the running backs here. Let's just, I guess, anything else QB-wise you want to hit on? Because we should touch on running backs and then do our 100-yard picks.
Oh, damn it. I don't think so. That's pretty like that. We've touched on everybody that I am getting any sort of volume for.
Yeah. I'm surprised that Matt Moore. Yeah. Matt Moore only 2.4% owned. That's crazy. On DK.
That's great. It's comparable on FanDuel. I'm very happy about it. That's why I like it as much as I do.
Yeah. I think that's a good play. All right, let's talk running backs here. We talked about Jalen Samuels, but in case people are just tuning in, where are we shaking out on Jalen Samuels on your end? For me, he's pretty much a lock play.
Yep. He's the most owned guy I have right now, just north of 90% ownership.
Yeah, it'll be a bummer if he fails. Like I don't see how it happens. I think he'll get enough targets, and even if, one touchdown and his 5 targets that he catches, like I think then whatever rushing he gets, like I think that's enough for him to have a nice day. And I think it seems unlikely to me that they wouldn't get him involved because he's also a safe route too, and they love giving Mason Rudolph the safe kind of check down plays.
It's a price play. It's a price play completely, but it doesn't have to be just a price play. like he could also be really problematic from a defensive standpoint or from a DFS standpoint. He can become something that is absolutely necessary with like a 20-point game.
Yeah, I mean, he went nuts the last time that he had that runway last year. I mean, he got a ton of passes and had some decent rushing work as well. Yeah, I just wouldn't get away from him this week. I get if you want to for tournaments, but especially for cash plays, he's a lock. And if you want to come in, under the field right now, we have him projected for 55% in the last ownership run. That's pretty high, but still, whatever. I think you're just going to take. Sometimes you're going to take the free square. Jalen Samuels does seem to be a free square this week.
If you don't play him in cash, you should never play DFS again.
I would agree.
I don't even mean that as hyperbole. Like that is exactly what you're supposed to do in that scenario.
Yes, high owned, high floor, safe play. Who everybody will be on. Like that's the cash game play. That is just what a cash game play is.
Yeah, it's the biggest no brainer of the season in cash.
How about one that feels like less of a no-brainer, I think? I mean, the ownership will be there, so maybe it is a little bit, but Christian McCaffrey, priced up, going to be very highly owned again, going against a Tennessee defense who actually is really good, and according to PFF, does grade out better than the Tampa Bay one, who has given McCaffrey some headaches. I think McCaffrey is going to have a decent floor day. I don't know that I see the ceiling. I am on him less than the field right now, 25% expected ownership on DraftKings. Where are you shaking out with McCaffrey?
At least I get to cheer for him today. I don't normally go crazy, but he's my second most exposed running back right now.
Wow.
This is another piece where you need to pay attention to the way that FC is making lineups if you're using an optimizer, because much like I said for Aaron Rodgers, by getting so much Jalen Samuels, you will naturally get more Christian McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook because you've got way more money left to be able to spend it. My wife is at this game today, so just in case something's going squirrely, maybe I could have her like run out into the field or something.
That seems like a great move.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and I think Eric and Sam mentioned too that I think Jarrell Casey's supposed to be out for them, so that could also help clear things up a little bit for Christian McCaffrey. But still a situation where I don't trust McCaffrey at this price point. There are guys I like a little bit who are cheaper. I do think Samuels opens it up and makes it a little bit easier there, but I'm paying up for wide receiver more this week because I think there are guys there. Allen Robinson, another higher price guy who I like quite a bit. Galladay, who we talked about. Like I think there are guys there who have really big upside, and McCaffrey does too, obviously. But if he gets me 30 points at 10K and I can get somebody who has 25, and I think I can this week at a cheaper price, that's where I'm trying to do.
So with me being on FanDuel and that being a half-point PPR, I'm more likely to go to a running back, even if it is like Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, he's just involved no matter what. He doesn't count, but more likely to go to running backs than wide receivers. Just a slight lean, just because there's a little bit less value in the average wide out.
Okay, that seems fair. All right, let's keep going into the 100-yard picks. That is our time here. Last week, only one brave soul was able to finagle a win, and you'll never guess who it was. It was me, and that puts me in the lead now over that rat bastard Emac. You're over your old pal Emac. It is now 4-3. Josh, it may shock you to hear you're still not on the board.
Who did I have last week?
You had Chris Carson.
Oh, that was last week? Man, that felt like it was 6 million years ago.
It's because we talked about it on Live Before Lock on NBA this week, too.
Okay. Cool. All right, guys, buckle up. If you're ready to know who you want to fade, it's coming now. Oh, we just got a super chat.
Oh, okay. What does it say?
Should I start Trubisky, Kyle Allen, or Daniel Jones in a QB league, in a 2 QB league with Wentz? Also, shout out to CMAC for that.
Yeah, thank you, CMAC. We appreciate that. Of course, when you do super chat us, we do read your questions. So the YouTube people, if you're feeling like the Slack people get a little more attention, that is one way to catch our eye.
Kobe Gilkey asking the same question 9 straight times over and over again. You don't get your question answered, but I do put you on timeout. Come back in 5 minutes when you know how to use a chat.
Oh, damn.
Anyway.
So CMAC for me, I think it would be Trubisky because I do think Allen Robinson can lift Trubisky enough there. I'm not really a big believer in Kyle Allen in this spot. Daniel Jones versus the Cowboys, I could see, but I would favor Trubisky. I just think he's got a decent floor, even though I know, look, we all know the issues with Trubisky. He's on the road, but I think Allen Robinson's going to have a nice day today. So I think that can carry him to a decent day.
I think I would go Kyle Allen, but I'm not super happy about picking any of the names on that list. but I think that I would be more likely to go to Kyle Allen.
Okay, so 2 differing answers there, but hopefully you land on the right one, C-Mac. But I would say either way, it seems like Daniel Jones is the one bringing up the rear there.
Yes, very much not Daniel Jones. It's a really there's not a lot separating Kyle Allen and Trubisky in this situation for me. So
yep. All right, so let's go here onto the 100-yard and TD picks. I'll let you go first.
8K at 7,900 or less.
Yes. DraftKings salary wise.
Cool. Running back.
Don't pick Jalen Samuels, please. I don't want him to have a bad day.
Oh, dude, even if you want him, there's no way I'm taking Jalen Samuels and putting that kind of juju on myself. Absolutely not. It's just not happening. I don't want to pick that guy either because that's going to bone me. This is awful. All I keep doing is seeing guys with high exposure that I have, and that's just a death knell.
This is like a DFS version of Saw. You just have to make a chance to cut off your limb.
I'm not going to do something hacky like that. I will take. I hate myself for this. It's going to ruin me. He had 3 straight 150-yard receiving games and 4 of 5 at one point in time before having less last week. Give me Chris Godwin.
Oh, all right. Going with a receiver. You know what? I was thinking about a receiver too. I may match you on that because we always go running backs. Running backs tend to be the safest plays for this game. But I'm going to dig deep here. Robbie Anderson is my pick.
The kicker?
No, the Jets wide receiver.
That is a deep cut.
Yeah. And EMAC going to Chris Carson.
I just ran a crunch of 300 lineups and didn't get Robbie Anderson.
That seems like a mistake.
I'll take my chances. What the hell do I know?
I think Robbie Anderson goes bananas today. I think we're seeing, the Robbie Anderson ceiling day that we know exists somewhere inside, I think is what's going on today.
Somebody in Slack chat wanted to play him or was asking about him in cash. So maybe they needed to talk to you instead of me.
He's not a cash game play for sure. He is very much
not
a play, but he is one I am 10x the field on.
What's the field at?
I think 3%.
Okay. Good luck there, buddy.
Look, it's a bold take. I get it.
I don't generally feel comfortable putting that many eggs in the basket of a Jet.
I agree. Look, I agree. I just think this is the spot and people don't want to trust the Jets and nice weather day in Miami. I'm cool with it. I'm cool. I'll die on the Robbie Anderson hill this week and probably very likely actually die on that hill.
I was going to say, it sounds like you might legitimately die on that hill. So
yeah.
Best of luck in that scenario.
Also, the YouTube chat not happy with you picking Godwin. People talking about taking him out of lineups now.
Yeah, I have a ton of him, guys. A ton. I had 38% on my last go around. So trust me, I'm as not happy about this as you guys are.
Greg SJ, what happened to Godwin? He's concerned about him because everybody's taking Godwin.
Did they think he's thinking news came in?
Oh, it's hilarious. That's
my bad, guys. My bad. I don't mean to do that to you.
Your lack of luck on this is one of the funniest, I think, content bits we've had on these shows.
Weird. I feel I have a very different vibe than you do for this. I'm incredibly unhappy about it.
Guys, hit that like button, by the way. The likes help us out. The likes make Josh feel better about being the curse of all these players every single week. It's just amazing because you I'm not blowing any air up you or any smoke up your butt or anything, but I think you're a very, very smart guy who's really good at DFS. It's hilarious to me that we are now 9 weeks into the year and you have not gone on the board yet.
I have 100-yard aids.
You do. You really do. But anyway, we'll see how it goes this week.
I've been enjoying the DFS, the NFL. I have not been enjoying this picking at all. He's gonna have 99 yards and a touchdown today, and you're gonna see the news that I jumped off of the bridge in downtown Wilmington.
It's so great. It's so great. It's uncanny. Guys all have good weeks, and you can't get there for old Josh, which It's just funny. It's just one of the funniest things. All right, let's keep talking the running backs. Ownership wise, McCaffrey going to be owned. Dalvin Cook's ownership has come up quite a bit too, and he's also priced up. I actually prefer Dalvin Cook. I know this is kind of a little bit hot takey, but I just think he's got a bigger upside in the spot going against a Kansas City team who, again, has allowed guys like Carlos Hyde to have monster days. Dalvin's a beast. He can lose touches in Madison. I understand that stuff, but I think the game will be competitive. I think he gets to the end zone at least once. I think he's just got a nice floor and a really nice bit of upside, and I just like the way he runs. So I'm with the field on Dalvin Cook. I'm not with the field on McCaffrey. Where'd you end up with Dalvin?
I believe I was under. Let me just double check that now. Yeah, I was about half the field on Cook. I assume that you're mostly just on Cook because you are still rallying against the wide receivers for the Vikings, so you're doubling down on that.
Less so now, but I do think Cook is always going to get the first looks, and I think there are games where you'll see Diggs and Thielen go off. I mean, look, I think I've been right enough this year where they haven't had the same year they had last year collectively. I think that's sort of what I'll hang my hat on. But no, Cousins has looked amazing over the last month. So to his credit, he's kind of in that Russell Wilson boat to me where I don't know that he's seeing a ton of volume or not the volume he needed last year or he had last year. But he's been so effective with it all that I don't hate playing the receivers, but I just think Cook's a beast. And I think he has a really guaranteed workload. He's getting 20 touches a game. Madison's not really taking a lot off the table from him. So I'm very comfortable with him every week.
Cook is the guy I am. And again, this is just sort of a testament to Alex's projections. They have been lower on Cook, I feel, in most weeks. So I've ended up with less, but he's one of the few guys in the NFL where, you see him pretty regularly on a red zone channel. So just anytime it was like, and we cut to Minnesota here, Dalvin Cook, and it's just like, shit, please say fumble. Please say fumble.
Yeah, no, he gets so much work. So the thing with him too, you mentioned the red zone thing. Like you're saying that in jest, but he gets 3.3 red zone carries a game, 2.4 carries inside the 10, one of the better marks, 1.3 inside the 5 a game, which is also one of the top marks in the league, like just behind Sony Michel. So like he's really involved in the red zone. I think that's sort of what I'm looking for here. And I just think Minnesota will be able to move the ball enough for Cook can thrive in that kind of spot.
Sorry, I'm trolling in YouTube chat.
Oh, no, I see you're feuding now with Kobe. Kobe
yeah.
not happy about being put in timeout.
No.
Yeah, just don't spam the chat, guys. Like, yeah, I really don't have an issue with anybody today. I'm in a good mood besides dying inside from whatever's going on with me. But yeah, just don't spam the chat. It's not cool to flood it with people trying to actually ask questions and talk in there.
Jeremiah Johnson nails it. Godwin injures hammy in first 5 minutes and leaves game, questionable return.
I mean, that is a thing that hasn't occurred for you yet. Though the David Johnson one was the best one where he played like one snap and he's like, I can't go, man.
Yeah, it's not going to get worse than that one.
It's true. You've hit the bottom.
I had a ton of him. I picked him as my 100-yard guy. He played the first snap and they were just like, psych.
Yeah, that would be funny. That would be funny if it happened again today. But one time in the year is really enough. I don't want that to happen. That's too mean. The 90 yards and a TD is much funnier, I think, to continue.
I just don't want these things to affect my lineups. I kind of want the shtick of sucking at this to run for 17 weeks, but I don't want it to be at the peril of 45% of my entries.
No, it's tough. It's a tough game to walk for you here. Let's run through some of the rest of the running backs here so we can hit on the wide receivers and tight ends and all that stuff. Aaron Jones, where are you shaking out on him?
Aaron Jones.
I'm under the field on him, for the record. I think he's a great play. I love his involvement. There are guys I like more at different price points.
He's my lowest exposed running back that has exposure.
Okay. So
I have him in 2 lineups as of right now. He's probably one of the bigger running back fades. I'm just betting more on the Packers passing game than Aaron Jones just scoring 6 touchdowns a game.
Yeah, I think it's fair. Like he's been really good. I mean, he went off, which killed me, by the way. Like I played him in my long-term season-long league, and actually like lost like 154 to 150 because he had 40 freaking points. Not my favorite Aaron Jones, but yeah, I mean, look, if Adams is out, I think he's a lot more appealing because Aaron Rodgers does not seem to trust the other receivers at all, and that's going to go to Jones. That's going to go to Jamal Williams. But I don't know. It's just not a spot where I'm dying for it. I get it though. Going against the Chargers is fine. They're just some dudes. I'd rather save a little bit of money, go to Josh Jacobs, rather pay up and go to Le'Veon Bell. Like that's basically where I ended up.
Yeah, I mean, the price is nice on FanDuel. I'm a little apprehensive to have as little as I do. I have a lot more Le'Veon Bell right now than I do Aaron Jones. I've got more Josh Jacobs in that general price range than I do Aaron Jones. And eventually you just can't play everybody.
Yep, I think that's fair. Can't play everybody. I am playing Le'Veon Bell, as I mentioned. I think he goes well with that Darnold and Robbie Anderson stacks that I'm putting together. He's going to be owned. Where are you shaking out with him?
He was at least my third most owned running back. It goes Samuels, McCaffrey, Bell, and then a pretty steep drop off.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That seems fair. I mean, I'm with those guys besides the McCaffrey one. And really, you can't argue McCaffrey. Like, I just don't know that he has, I don't know that his 2.5x value that he's projected for is going to be quite enough if he does underperform a bit, but we'll see. We'll see in a few short hours. Any guys you're getting any appreciable amounts of? Josh Jacobs, a guy I have some of. You have a little bit of Mark Walton just because of whatever. And Melvin Gordon's a guy I'm above the field on, who I think is actually a pretty solid play at his price point on DraftKings. I think Green Bay does give up some decent looks. And Anthony Lynn, a noted fan of Melvin Gordon, I think that he is the new offensive coordinator, or at least the one who's calling the plays for LA now, for the Chargers now. So I think that could benefit Gordon. So he's a guy that I'm also substantially above the field on.
So there are I basically got 3 spots to put running backs on FanDuel. Jalen Samuels is essentially in one of them every time. Mm-hmm. So I don't have anything too crazy after McCaffrey and Bell. Like, I've got a quarter of my lineups will have Chubb. Everybody else is 20% or less. So at best, I'm with the field on the Josh Jacobs, half the field on Dalvin Cook. I basically don't have Chris Carson. I basically don't have Aaron Jones. It's like 14 to 15% of guys in that 6K range. Eckler, if he has a pulse this week, Derrick Henry, Freeman, Phillip Lindsay. I mean, you flip a coin between those two idiots. But nobody is getting a ton of volume because I've basically only have 2 spots to put running backs after Jalen Samuels.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And that's basically where I am too, where Samuels is kind of my lock play, and I'm just rotating a lot of these other guys around him. But yeah, I agree with the takes. And I think just, Gordon just jumped out to me as one guy who I think is worth some exposure because of the price point, and he could easily have 2 touchdowns. Whether you think he's as good of a running back as Eckler or not, I don't even think matters. I think he's just going to get the work, and he has gotten all the goal line work so far. So let me just pull that up because I'm pretty sure he had a pretty decent. Yeah, he's getting 2 rushes inside the red zone per game, 1.5 inside the 10, 1.3 inside the 5. Again, that 1.3 mark, one of the better ones. Same one for Dalvin Cook. Leader in the league is Sony Michel with 1.4. So pretty good looks for Melvin Gordon so far, even if he has sucked. And I think Green Bay's run defense is one of their weak spots.
I remembered what I wanted to ask before, and it really was a question. Shouts to Mark Smith in chat for basically saying it and triggering it to me. Where does the expression "reading the tea leaves" come from?
It's probably, I would think, a Chinese proverb thing.
Did you really? Is it like tarot cards type thing where you toss a bunch of tea leaves on the ground and like the way that they show up on the table is like, oh, you're gonna have good luck because the purple leaf is upside down on top of the blue one type shit? I need to get a hobby that's not.
So it's called tasseography. Is apparently the pattern of reading tea leaves. The first inklings of Western tasseography can be traced to medieval European fortune tellers who developed their readings from splatters of wax, lead, and other molten substances. This evolved into tea leaf reading in the 17th century, a short time after Dutch merchants introduced tea to Europe via trade routes to China.
So they sound like the same people that would sell lineups on Twitter.
Yeah. Cam ATL reading some tea.
God.
Hollywood. Just throwing some tea leaves up and see how it goes.
He's throwing some leaves.
So we learned something again. Look, I enjoy when we learn things on the show. I learned the other day from Eddie on one of our live streams that decimate is what they would do. They would kill 1 out of every 10 men when taking over a town or something. I was like, wow, okay, that kind of ruins the phrase decimate for me. I didn't realize it was part of a genocide thing. So you learn a lot.
Fun.
Boy, man, the Chinese spy guy is all over your ass today.
Yeah.
Different.
I don't know.
What is going on? All right, so the running backs, we covered that well enough. Let's talk about the receivers. Burn through this. Top owned players looking like all the other position players who get catches are blurring out the receivers for me. But Chris Godwin, your boy, going to be the top owned play of the week on DraftKings. Everybody's going down with you, man.
Lucky everybody.
But where are you relative to the field on Chris Godwin?
Like double. I'm glad that you're tickled about this, man. I'm not.
It's one of my favorite things. It really is. There's so few things that bring me this amount of joy. You have no idea.
I wish that I could find something that didn't bring you this much joy. This is incredibly disappointing, in my opinion.
It's a tough situation, but yeah. So Chris Godwin, one of the chalk plays. Mike Evans not far behind him. Where'd you shake out relative to the field with Mike Evans?
I have like roughly equal to the field on Evans.
Okay. I am under the field on both for not for you related reasons. I just think this game is a little bit more of a slog than it may seem. I could be wrong on that take, but I just like the few more. And this is one I've gotten away from a bit. So I'm about half the field on both these guys, maybe even a little bit less for Godwin.
Yeah, and look, that makes sense. You know, we kind of lead into that with the way that we talk about quarterbacks. If you're like, oh, I love Chris Godwin, I love Mike Evans, there's no way we start the show off with being like, I don't really like Jameis, because we know that those guys can go crazy and like he can obviously have monster passing days.
Yeah, I agree.
Jason Sullivan, I just got here. Did Josh say Godwin? No.
It's going to be funny if his ownership like drops by lock just because of your impact on the market.
Man, if I have that kind of ability, I'd honestly be proud of myself.
We're a very influential show.
If I could sway it to push him down due to how poorly I've been picking a guy to go for 100, it would be mwah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Bradley Velasquez, can Spags be more insufferable? I could be named Bradley. I think that would probably help. You dipshit. Get the fuck out.
It's gonna be one of those. It's gonna be one of those days, evidently.
Who else are you getting a receiver? Davante Adams, Keenan Allen, also going to be pretty highly owned. I don't have much of those guys, but Adams, I think too. Do we know his status officially yet?
I have him.
Okay.
If that helps you at all. Tyler Lockett, my most exposed wide receiver, but other than that, nothing crazy.
Yeah, I like Lockett. I'm pretty close to the field on Lockett. I think I'm just a little bit under where we have him right now at 17%, but I think he's a strong play. Galladay one, I'm very over the field on. I think he's a really strong play. Amendola picking up some ownership on DraftKings, which I know he's been getting looks, but a little bit surprising that he's one of the top 10 owned guys.
I truly hate when I get him.
Yeah, I mean, he has had big days, to his credit.
Kevin Lloyd just said he cut his ownership in half on Godwin.
It's a fun situation here on Live Before. We like to have fun here. That's why we don't need the negative nonsense.
If he goes crazy, guys, for real, let me know in Twitter.
Anybody else you have an appreciable amount above the field on who's worth hitting on? Because we should talk about tight ends a little bit. I obviously talked about Robbie Anderson, a guy I like a bit. Preston Williams in that game too. He's my run back with the Jet stacks, and I'm hoping have some value today. And Marvin Jones too. Anybody who's associated with Detroit, I have some exposure to because they just have too many weapons that can go off there. So yeah, that's sort of mine. But anybody else you want to bring to the people? Cortland Sutton too, I think also worth a little bit of a look.
Cortland Sutton, I have 4 times the field on, and then DJ Moore I have a little bit of.
Okay, yeah, Moore is interesting. I think he's also an interesting pivot to the to what we're seeing in the ownership for McCaffrey, just that high price and how cheap that both he and Curtis Samuel are.
I need to get my lineups ready. 9 minutes.
Yeah, 9 minutes to lock, guys. So get that in. Hit that like button too, please, if you can, because the support does help us quite a bit. And positivity is better than negativity. I don't know why people. I don't know why people are like shitty to things. Like when I don't like things, I just don't watch them. Or
yeah, I've never just showed up at like something I didn't like on YouTube and just was like, I cannot wait to tell everybody how much this sucks.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's just never been my thing. Like I don't believe I don't think that's just good karma for anything, especially in DFS. And you need that good karma as much as you can.
Exactly.
Tight ends. I am playing ass loads of Darren Waller, and that's just what's going to define my day as well. I just think he's in a great spot. I think coming off of a down week too, I think it's also going to be good. He's priced up, but I think it's a really nice spot. I've talked about this Detroit game more than enough. So where are you shaking out a tight end?
I'm playing quite a bit of Darren Waller, as are you, and I think that's really just the best way to do this. Going back to the well a little bit with Hunter Henry, he was problematic for me at best last week. I've got some Travis Kelce and then a very tiny amount of Hawkinson, Ertz, and then Brait shows up once.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I have a little bit of Zach Ertz just because he is too cheap, like just for what he is. Sucks that Dallas Goedert takes some of his opportunity off the table, but Ertz just seems due for better days. He's got a 58% catch rate on the year, which is kind of shocking. he's always had a good connection with Carson Wentz. So, this spot versus Chicago could be one where you need to go to your guys who can actually for sure get you yards. And I think Ertz is one of those guys for Philly. So, that'd be where I shake out. Are you chase any Jonnu Smith or anything like that?
I'm not.
Okay. I like Jonnu Smith as a talent, but I didn't see the need to get there today.
You know me with tight ends.
Yeah. I do know. I think to me this week is really Waller or bust. I think he's so far above everybody else, and even at his price point. I did get a little Noah Fant though, I guess, for whatever that's worth, because again, those Brandon Allen lineups and Fant did run out of the slot more. He actually took the slot role that a lot of people, including me, thought was going to go to Deshaun Hamilton. It was mostly Fant running out of the slot, and he does seem a guy who can get targeted a bit at near minimum price.
Josh Engelman did outkick his coverage in his marriage because his wife makes all the money in the relationship and wears the pants. Yeah, that's a true statement. I did outkick my coverage. She's fantastic.
Yeah, Josh's wife is a lovely lady.
I don't know. I'm not upset that she's personally successful. That's fucking awesome. I'm very happy for her. Kind of horrible person would I be if it was the opposite?
Yeah, I've never gotten
okay, you got to go away now.
That is a lot of spam. Jesus. Yeah. What is going on today, people? Guys, do some meditation. Download the Headspace app. Whoever's doing that shit, relax.
It's craziness. But
Sunday, it's the Lord's Day, guys.
Yeah, you guys need to get right with the man upstairs.
Also, somebody saying I talk crap about Cam ATL. It was just a joke. It's just me naming a person, but he does sell lineups. I don't know. That's not a high ethics thing generally in the DFS industry, but he seems like a fine enough dude. I don't care. All right, 5 minutes slot, guys. Get it in. Defenses. I know they're not your favorite, but what are you doing on defense?
I'm playing one in every lineup for sure.
Any leans? I know Alex's projections really favor Carolina, so I did force them in quite a bit. His defense projections, I think, might be the strong. I mean, obviously they're all great, but the defense ones have been really on the nose a lot of weeks recently, where there are ones where I'm like, I don't get this, and then I play them and I'm like, okay, that was better than whenever I picked.
Most exposed defenses: Jets, Browns. I'm reading these in order: Jets, Browns, Redskins, Panthers, Bills.
Okay. Bills, I think, is again one of mine. Panthers, another one of mine. Redskins, so cheap. I agree with that as well. And Josh Allen, he can get loose with the ball. He can make mistakes, even though he is the greatest quarterback of all time. He does have some flaws, some could say.
All right. I think I am about ready to enter my lineups. 93% Jalen Samuels.
Shout out to the premium Slack, by the way. Black Madden saying this show is great. People seem to be enjoying it. So thank you guys. We appreciate the support, appreciate the positivity. It's just nice energy. So
trying to have some fun, guys. That's all.
All right. We will now take any questions. So if you have any questions on YouTube, super chat it in. We'll get to it right away because we got 5 minutes here. We might as well.
I'm 10 seconds away from just pasting in my lineups and being done. But
yeah, and you can give your final ownership exposures as well because people always enjoy that.
Yeah.
David A. Vasquez Rodriguez, cool name. Cook and Waller or Ertz and McCaffrey. That would very much be Cook and Waller for me.
Cook and Waller. The site matters a lot to me, actually. Cook and Waller on FanDuel, where you don't get as much for the receptions for McCaffrey, is to me big. If it's DK, I would probably rather have the McCaffrey piece.
I'll see. Now he's spamming the question as we're answering it. Come on. Now I regret rewarding this.
Some people just don't know how to handle themselves in public.
No, apparently not.
I retract my answer. You're not allowed to hear what I had to say.
Oh my God. So now I'm getting spam trolled too. Jesus Christ. Get a life. What is this shit?
I hope I got the right person.
Oh,
now I accidentally blocked somebody else. Sorry, Sparty. I didn't mean to do that, man. The guy just caught me up with too many messages. I'll try to unhide you. Unhide user. Sorry, Sparty. I didn't mean to ban you on that one, brother or sister. I'm not particularly sure of your gender. Gender's fluid anyway.
Mike Williams or Marvin Jones Jr. with a Stafford Galladay stack. That would definitely be Marvin Jones Jr. because you want to get your two guys there who are going to help push Stafford to big production.
Yeah, if Mike Williams was a different wide receiver in that scenario, I can see picking someone with slightly more talent. But in this case, I would rather just double down more on the Lions. All right, I've got my exposures here too.
Yeah, go for it.
Jalen Samuels, 93. Le'Veon Bell, 41. McCaffrey, 37. Chubb, 25. Eckler, Jacobs, Lindsey, Henry, Cook, all in like the 15 range. Eckler's going to get like 6 touches again today, so great. 65% Lockett, 52% Godwin, 30% Mike Evans, 28% Davante Adams, 23% Sutton, 19% DJ Moore. Tight end, 53% Waller, 30 Henry, 11 Kelsey, minimal everywhere else. Highest exposed quarterbacks, Winston, Wilson, Rivers, Rodgers.
Okay. Mike Leamy in the chat asking cheap tight ends. I think really Noah Fant's the only guy that I have at any volume of at super cheap. Again, I really think you just pay up for Darren Waller and hope for the best. He's got really a secure role and has big upside as we've seen.
Yeah.
Let's see.
2 minutes.
2 minutes to lock. No good. What about bringing Kyle Allen along with McCaffrey and Moore? That would be logical, I would think. If you're expecting big production from the pass game. So I don't hate that, but not a play that I made.
No, like there's never a reason, like no one should ever be like, no, you shouldn't do that when you have a quarterback and, 2 pass catchers together. Like every one of those things is viable in some sort of way.
Yep. I agree. I mean, it's just, if you're playing these guys, like the assumption is that the quarterback's gonna be carried along with it. If you're expecting DJ Moore to have a day that's worth rostering and winning a tournament, then obviously he's going to have big production from the quarterback, and McCaffrey's going to get some of those passes, going to get his 7 targets a game or whatever he gets. So the assumption is that it all rises together. Let's see. Does Goddard have value? Goddard does have some. So Goddard's going to lose some looks, I think, because of Deshaun Jackson being in there. Was that confirmed yet? I think it was.
I don't know, but my answer is no.
I think Goddard's a fine play, but it's a real flimsy margin where you're basically hoping him to get a touchdown and 4 catches. So, not a terrible play, but I do think his role is going to be a bit reduced with Deshaun out there because you're just not going to run as many 2 tight end sets when you have Deshaun Jackson.
God, I'm so excited to eat lunch.
I am too. I am excited to drink a White Claw the second we're done.
I'm sure you are.
Here, what do you do? Yeah, why not? What do you think about the late game today? Your boy Lamar going into a matchup with the Patriots. I heard them talk about it on the deeper dive right before us a little bit. How are you thinking that game shakes out? I guess that could be relevant for people playing fantasy draft as well.
I mean, my first assumption is that it goes really poorly for Lamar because that's just like Bill Belichick's MO to shut shit down. And it's not like they got a lot of other interesting stuff going on. I'm sure they'll be fine to let Mark Ingram beat them. I assume that the Patriots just handle them.
Yeah, I think so too. I do think Lamar is going to present probably the best challenge the Patriots have had, but I'm actually just curious to see how it goes. I don't even think I'm going to play showdowns. I usually don't play showdown Sunday night slates. I just need a little bit of not playing slates break usually by that point.
I'll be playing basketball, so.
Yeah, I will just be watching football and getting all sorts of baked. But either way, we are locked now. Thank you guys for watching. Again, thank you to all the people out there being positive and all that. It's a long day here. It's a long week of NFL and NBA content for us also. Just, positive energy does help us out quite a bit. And we appreciate all you guys out there. We also greatly appreciate fantasydraft.com. Right now, the Hooters main event is locked, but they have a bunch of other tournaments on there for both the NFL, the NBA, NHL, all the sports that you're playing on there. And the best news is that all those sports are rake free. So you're not giving any money to the house. You are just paying, you're getting your own membership and all that and paying some other fees, but they are not in the contest. All the contest fees go right to the winner. So if you win, you are winning big on there. So go to fantasydraft.com right now. Use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO for your free 7-day trial. And also go to awesemo.com/join to check out the packages on there. Use the promo code live before lock. You'll get half off your first month of any package or any monthly package rather. So go to awesemo.com/join and check out packages as low as $3.95 a week on there. And we have the NFL Live Before Lock coming up later with Eric and Eric, the E&E show coming up for the actual showdown slate. So they'll be talking about a lot
Eric
more.
And Eric in the evening, man. Come on.
Oh, my bad. Eric and Eric in the evening coming up later here for you.
Fast Eddie and EMAC as well.
That's right. So a lot of EMAC for you today. So check out your old pal. Check out Eddie and EMAC. Of course, those guys do a fun show every weekend too. Just 2 old pals who've known each other forever. So they have a fun vibe. It's always worth watching and listening to. And anything else you want to plug?
No, I think that's it.
All right. That is it, guys. So thanks for watching. Hit that like button before you go. We'll be back with you guys again next week. So good luck.